me in one ear but not in the other?
Yeah.
You can hear me in the room but not actually streaming on our website?
Yep, I'm on connected. Yeah, no, we should good.
Yeah, it's muted even though it's not muted.
Right, it's gotta be the PC feedback on that line. Oh crap, you know what?
Hopefully you're getting done.
Yeah, I know. The week that I did this is when Garth had those other speakers pulled out. So I bet you the feedback is back to normal because we put the system back together.
Whatever it takes. All of your words.
All your words.
Thanks. You don't want to be here.
Are you really though?
No. It's been a long day already. Marianne, we have to meet. Kathy was sick yesterday.
Oh, I was out too.
Oh, and I was at a conference all day today, so I haven't even talked to Kathy about which afternoon worked. But let me go to the bathroom.
Yeah, I'll be here.
And then I'll ask Kathy which afternoon works, and then let's schedule something.
Yep.
Big problem is I brought my sunglasses in, so my
Uh-oh,
readers, which
uh-oh.
is not gonna suffice. So bathroom and car. We're just hanging out.
Yeah, for like emergencies, just for the school security, all of them, so like elementary, high school.
Right, it's everywhere.
I'm like, I recognize this carnival event. I'm like, why would you be here? Especially the day that I come here, you know, I don't come here very often.
Have you done this before?
I usually always do it with Brent.
Yeah.
So Brent always gives like a little spiel, and then I usually get the like numbers, kind of because they get to see them. And they understand.
Did you have it here?
Yeah, so it got sent to them, and then
Yeah, let me see.
this is what I sent.
What happened to, is it Bailey? Do we ever turn in the other station? She's at home.
Breaks down all the channels.
She's our new one.
Yeah.
One thing I can't figure out on this app, and
Well,
I because it's out of
the
date,
newer,
is
yeah.
when we,
Our newest
this
hire.
board, I can't reassign the buses to like turn the outs in, ins and ins out. But on the actual, there's this whole board, this is the bigger one, but this is the one that's free rate. That's absolutely bummer, but really, really,
You should get
we didn't even consider that when we got it, you know, we just didn't even-
Jen, where are you from? That's where we get our fireworks from. You probably hear that a lot, yeah.
You worked in fireworks.
Yeah, their day was Black Friday and every day. But then everyone gets laid off July.
No,
It was
for
great
sure.
for me because of that.
Doesn't Drum also have like a shooting course?
Yeah,
Work on site or something like that?
100%.
Yeah, I have a friend that did that. Actually, I'm looking right now. Oh, wow, that's awesome. What years were you in? She's the stud there.
How are you? We got Lola. We're good. How are you guys?
Okay.
Good.
Great.
How are you?
Very well.
Good.
Darren, look at you. How are you? Great. How about you?
Good to see you.
You too.
How are you, Darren? How are you? See you. Good.
Hi, Marion.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Making it.
Right?
You always get one.
Do you need a minute, Heather?
What's that?
Do you need a water?
I'm good,
Okay.
but thank you.
Deanna, do you need a water? Okay. How about for you, Jim?
They say that we're.
I'm good. Thanks. You're okay?
Now.
It'll be a long meeting.
Did these not go up?
She did, yeah.
Did you already have one?
No, 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 she didn't bring it, so. That's very, yeah, but
Feel
she
like
can
I'm
tell
sitting in a hole.
There's a swear you, but you don't know what it is, so I don't wanna give anybody a hard time.
Oh.
Yes, hi.
Is it to here? This is as high as this one.
Oh.
That's as high as it goes?
This one?
Oh, that's great.
Is that one the same? Yeah.
I guess so. Feel like I'm sitting in a hole. And my wife drives like that. Down in it. Oh, man. I sit in my truck with my steering wheel down here, I love it.
Not today. Frequently, but not today.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, you are
This is for, are you?
Send it down to Jim. You might need one after. I don't know if I have it.
Thank you.
But I brought this just in case.
Oh, thank you.
A little extra.
Oh. Yeah, we gotta just take it. All right.
Who is?
I hereby call this meeting to order for the purpose of a board work session and a special meeting for action. All the board members are present. There are a few addendum items which include annual overview of CTE presentation, HHS redesign and build committee minutes, preliminary budget materials, written comment, and Zone 1 trustee applications. We'll begin with the PMC athletic training and concussion report provided by Britt Udy and Nate Carter. Did I say that right?
Well, yes,
But it'll be
pronounced Jen.
Jen Jewel.
Did I say? Oh, it says Britt. I'm so sorry.
I'm Britt.
Jen.
I'm-
Britt.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So can you clarify your names? Just
So I'm Britt Udy. I'm the program director for
Okay.
Portneuf. And then this is Jennifer Jewell, and she's the
Oh,
clinical
okay.
coordinator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so you probably all know that Brent used to be in my position, and he has now officially retired. So I have taken over for him as of April. So I'm super excited about that. I served in the role of the clinical coordinator and worked under Brent for 9 years. And so I think I'll do a really good job, and I'm excited for it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So the partnership began with Portneuf in 2013, for those of you that don't know. So we did start out with 3 athletic trainers, so 1 in every school. Our program now currently employs 9 athletic trainers, and 6 of them are dedicated to School District 25. So 2 full-time athletic trainers are in every school. So we initially modeled the athletic trainer after the teacher model, where you had like the summers for downtime, and then of course the weekends off, things like that. Things have picked up in athletics over the past couple years, and we do work a lot more Saturdays, and we are at our schools a lot more in the summers now. We're starting to actually track that because we kind of want to see what's our presence in the schools over the summer. And so that usually is just between June and July, because August we consider the start of our fall, and then we work all the way until end of May. So that was the average between the 3 schools was about 22 to 24 days. So I think that's pretty awesome that we're in our schools at least 2 to 3 days a week. Of course, not counting like the July 4th week, but if you look at that over just 8 weeks, I think that's a really good presence that we're having being there for the kids. So our primary objective is to have the state-of-the-art care. So we're always trying to figure out what can we do better moving forward every year, and we're always getting feedback from the ATs in every school. What do you need to provide better care? Right now, because we're having all of our home football games and more home events because of the new fields that are going in, which we do love, we need a little bit help with like all of our supplies and things like that. So Portneuf is helping us try to get UTVs at every single school so that if we do have an emergency on field, we're able to get to those athletes a lot quicker, administer what we need to faster, and then package them up, do whatever we need to so that when the fire department or ambulance comes, everything is very smooth for them, and that everything is on time and it's very efficient. So I'm excited about that, just with all the new facilities getting added. And that'll be awesome that we'll have a place to store UTV because of those the little like locker rooms that are being put in have the rolling doors. So I think that's going to be really good for us. We do have a very close working relationship with our medical directors. So that's Dr. Anthony Joseph and Richard Watney. And then we always work with all of the physicians at Portneuf, and because of that, we're able to get our athletes in for same day appointments, next day appointments, or even just a couple days after, which is really big. So all of the services we provide in the athletic training room at the schools is free. But if we think they need more care, maybe they need imaging, maybe more therapy, we have all these connections now to get them in. And so that's been really nice for us. And to make that even better, Portneuf and our corporate company Ardent have been a huge support this past year in getting us onto Epic. So Epic is what our electronic medical record system, and so that's what all of our physicians use. So now we are on that same system. So all of our notes can be seen easily by our doctors, and whatever they are recommending now is so much more easily communicated to us. So if there's limitations for practices or they don't want them to go, now we have like a timeline to communicate things better. And then if parents have questions, we can see what's going on and help answer those questions a little bit more fully without them having to call the offices and try to get a hold of the doctor and try to do it that way. So now we're tidying up a lot of those ends, which is going to be really good in the end for us. So that was a big project. It took about 50 people that Ardent put in charge of just that for just our program. So it was really big. They were excited. They were willing to back us in any way that we could get that done. So, of course, our concussion team is made up of our ATs, physical therapists, counselors, our physician, Dr. Joseph. He runs all of that. We are staying at market speed with all of that and always going to trainings yearly in February to make sure that all of the therapies that we're prescribing for these athletes are at market speed and what should be done for all of the athletes. And so Jen will go over all of the numbers in that report, which I think was sent to all of you as part of your packet, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so what you have in that report in front of you, these are just the fall and winter numbers for the year. We don't have the spring numbers complete yet because the state tournaments for the spring seasons are this weekend. But on that first table up top, you've got the total number of sport athletes between the three schools. We take care of almost 1,300 students. Our total days on site as athletic trainers averages about 148, and again, that's just for fall and winter. Typically, we're at the schools during the school season for the entire year, about 225 days, and then as Britt mentioned, we're there about 22 to 25 days over the summer. There's a little bit of discrepancy in between the numbers per school if you're looking at it. Just what helps explain that, though, is the season numbers end when your school season ends. So, for example, you'll see the Highland fall numbers are a little bit more than Pocatello's. Again, Highland made it all the way to the state championship. That fall number is a little bit bigger. Same thing with Pocatello High School. Their basketball team made it all the way to the state championship. So, again, these typically all round out to 225 days throughout the school year. What's on here is just the fall and winter numbers, but that helps explain the discrepancy that you might see in between the schools. The third table on the first page is the total athlete exposures. This number represents the student athlete's accessibility or opportunity to see us for our free services. Our total athlete exposure is just shy of 105,000. And again, this is just the fall and winter number. So again, this is how many times that we are available to each student athlete. And one thing I wanted to also mention is we also help take care of the PE students and some teachers and some coaches. So again, this doesn't reflect that either. But again, this is just fall and winter student athlete numbers. On the next page, you'll see the games and contests worked. For the fall and winter, we covered a total of 570 games and contests. That includes 100% home event coverage. Right, I've noticed that doesn't happen everywhere within our Idaho Falls, Madison, Rexburg, wherever. So again, I think that's a great accomplishment, and I do think that's because there are 2 athletic trainers in each school. We can make sure all the home events are covered, even freshman tournaments, all that fun stuff. Again, there's a little discrepancy in the games and events covered between schools. This can be explained because some schools have different numbers of teams. For example, Century only has 2 football teams, or for part of the year, they only had 1 varsity girls soccer team. So again, that helps explain the discrepancy in the numbers there. And again, we do travel with varsity football at all the schools. And then after that, we travel to what we can. So again, the home and away schedules also will explain the discrepancy that you see in the numbers there.
So I'm curious, just with the cheer, I would assume if the cheerleaders are at one of these events, you're gonna treat the cheerleader.
Oh, yes.
So
Yep.
these are just if it was a specific cheer-only event.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah, they're at football games, basketball games. Those get counted as football and basketball, but they are there, and we do treat them
Gotcha.
if they're there. The second table on the second page is the total number of athlete contacts. There was a typo on the Century football numbers on the forms you guys have. The correct Century football contact number is 1,081, making the total athlete contacts for fall and winter just over 11,000. And again, this does not include the teachers, coaches, PE kids that we see. Typically, we see about 600 per year between the 3 schools of what we categorize as other. Again, that table is not listed on here because it's something we calculate at the end of the school year. But that's just looking at fall and winter for our total athlete contacts. On the third page, you'll see the number of ambulance transports. We had 4 transports this year for fall and winter seasons. We always hope for this number to be low, but it truly just depends on the year. We have a good relationship with Pocatello EMS and have trainings with them to ensure a smooth, efficient transport whenever these situations do arise. And so, again, we just hope for that number to be nice and low every year, but we're prepared for the bad stuff when it happens. The number of concussions is the second table on the third sheet. For fall and winter sports, we had a total of 74. The spring seasons typically add about 2 to 3 per school, so you can add about 10 to this number to have the total concussions for the year. This is pretty on par for the average across the country. We rely on coaches, refs, again, some rulemaking that I think has helped to keep these numbers manageable and under control. And so again, I think this is pretty on par for what we see across the nation.
So I don't mean to be glib, but how do you get a concussion playing golf? Did somebody get?
Again,
Somebody get hit
sometimes
with
some
the
back
club?
squeeze, and it's
Yeah,
probably
is
more
that what
often
it
it's at
was?
practice them
Yes.
doing something dumb.
Okay.
I have had
I
some
was gonna say
swimmers.
practices usually is when it happens.
Yeah, I
Hey.
had an incident of a swimmer getting a concussion at swim practice because
Oh,
they were
I'm
playing Red
hitting the
Rover.
wall. Yeah.
They were playing Red Rover for
Oh,
a running
Big
thing.
plate
Yeah.
game, yep.
So yeah, it depends, but we're there to treat them.
You don't turn fast enough. to hit the
Yeah.
wall.
Yeah.
I've had that too.
Yeah, and lastly on that sheet, there's just athletic training value added. Again, we can average that about every contact we make is going to be about $25. Again, our services are free, but again, this is what we're helping parents and families save by coming to see us versus other healthcare providers. Again, we always refer if they do need more imaging or advanced care.
That seems really low to me based on your numbers here, but that's great.
Yep. So that's usually, we say about 25. So a lot of those numbers come from like what Medicaid would charge. So we just do an average because sometimes we like go in, we're just taping, we're doing rehab and eval, and it's just such a wide range of money that you could really look at for the value. And it's like, that's what we want to be there for, is to help them and even help the kids with their time, because these kids have crazy schedules. And it's like, it's nice where like the PTs, I have PTs that'll work with me and they're like, hey, will you just do this in your room? Like, here's their program, and we help them in that way as well. And then just like all the evaluations, all the different modalities that we apply, it's such a wide range. And so that number definitely is higher if you.
So does
wanna
this
get
take
it
into
agreed.
account the cost of material, so like the tape or the ice or the?
That does
and
not.
that's- Okay, so who is covering that?
So Portneuf covers that.
Portneuf covers
Yep,
that.
we
Okay.
cover that completely, and whatever our schools need, Portneuf is always like, hey, yep, get it.
Okay.
That's what you need, and we never are low on anything, and our schools are able to function at whatever rate that they need to with any supplies, whether it's a modality
It almost
tool.
seems like that number should be, you should include that. so
Yeah.
that people understand what the true cost of all of this.
Yeah, I
and
think
what
that's a
we're
great idea.
receiving.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You guys have any questions about the report or our program?
I don't. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Anybody
Appreciate what you
else?
do.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you so much.
Thank you guys for
Thanks
having us.
your
We appreciate it.
presentation. Thank you. Next on the agenda, Kathy Lesmick will present the Head Start change in scope request.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman and other Board of Trustee members, Superintendent Howell and Ms. Johnson. So you have the draft proposal, some additional information for you to know that this originated back when we first were placed on our full enrollment initiative plan in July of 2023. And ever since then, during our monthly meetings with our regional Head Start office, they have asked how we are doing with our enrollment, which through much hard work, we've been able to be at full enrollment each month since that time. However, we've had to look at all the factors that we've had to be able to address during the year to make that happen. And as we looked at coming to the conclusion of our enrollment plan, which won't be until the end of September of '24, because they need to have as many full months of data, and that's when we'll generate that remaining enrollment plan. It's looking at a whole new school year and just early on in the year. We anticipate that many of the additional challenges that we face this year will be in place for next year, if not also at a higher level. So part of our goal is to, by putting in the request, provide an opportunity for the program to have stability, get us into a better place. We have seen this year increase as far as number of children who are categorized as homeless, number of families who are going through housing insecurity. Our number of children who have dropped from the program because of those reasons is like doubled from last year. Increase in the number of children in foster care, in and out constantly throughout the year too. Increase in the number of CPS reports that we're doing. So we know families are really, really struggling this year. And as a result, we've also seen that in the workload for our staff and the stressors related to that. We've had some recent issues during the past year when years when COVID began with staff retention. I mean, Head Start typically has a higher turnover rate just because 100% of our population is at risk, and we are deemed to serve those with the greatest needs. So since, though, in recent years, we have seen the stress impact our staff. And so last year, we had a higher than normal turnover rate, and potentially, when I looked at some of our numbers today of staff who are looking to see if there might be other employment opportunities, we may be seeing, as much as even possibly a 10% turnover rate for staff. So we went out to them and we've been working with them. We've been working with a national company that's helped to do a survey so we could see where staff are at, how they're feeling, what would they feel would best help them to be able to provide the services that they know they can do if given a little bit of breathing room. And that's where our whole focus is, getting our program stable and making sure we can look at maintaining quality, but also continuing to improve the quality of our services.
So I just had a question. So when I'm looking at the reduction of these numbers,
Yes.
just two in one class and a reduction of one student in another, I mean, is that really significant? I mean, it almost doesn't seem, because you may have one absent anyway, and maybe that's what you're taking into consideration.
We take that into consideration. How the process worked is we got input from staff when we first proposed, do we look at this? And putting in a reduction of slots is a very, very difficult thing for us to do.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm like Doug like this. I get very passionate for what we do. We know that there are so many more children that could benefit from the program. So we wanted to be very mindful of our numbers to not cut too low. We really did not want to cut too low. And really the numbers that we looked at came a lot from the teachers. they're like, even if we can just get a flexibility of a couple, and putting some new things in place for next year, they are optimistic that it would help. And so that's why we chose that number.
Thank you.
Now, isn't it 13 total?
13 total.
Okay.
But I'm saying in individual classes, we're.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
it's unfortunate that Head Start finds itself in this position. It's not just here in this area, across the state. In fact, we are the last program to do a change in scope with federal funds and federal slots. Boise has done 2 significant ones. Idaho Falls has really reduced the number of communities that they're able to continue to serve. And again, 90% of programs across the nation are dealing with this issue.
You guys have worked through a lot with the lack of staff that you have, and lots of things. You have had
Yeah.
a lot of things, so thank you so much, Kathy. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
And just to let you know, it will then come before you as a board action item. The Policy Council met this week. We had to get their approval in order to have it move forward. And while it was not unanimous, overall majority, it was approved. So,
All right, well,
thank
thank
you.
you, Kathy, I appreciate that. Next on the agenda, we will have Developmental Kindergarten Program Report, presented by A.J. Watson, and A.J. can introduce.
I'll introduce you. Good afternoon, Board. We are excited to provide you with a developmental kindergarten update. We've almost made it through a full year of developmental kindergarten. We have 2 guests here with me today, and I thought as we were able to look at this and wanted to provide you with an update that it would be much better to hear from those that are there every single day. So Nicole Garza, the principal at Lewis and Clark, and Emily Smith, the developmental kindergarten teacher, are here to provide you with a little bit of an update. But before they share what they've gone through this year and the opportunities that they've had to work with this group, I just would like to commend them for the job that they've done. If you can see where it started, I didn't know if Emily was going to quit after the first 2 weeks. She emailed me a couple times, and I was like, "You holding up okay? Are you going to be able to?" But they truly have, both of them, Nicole and Emily, truly have a passion for helping kids succeed. And it has been so impressive to watch the change and transition from learners that were not successful at all in a kindergarten classroom to being where you could walk in and you could see learning taking place. They are behaviorally in a much better place to grow academically, social, emotionally. It's not perfect, but they have made a lot of gains, and they've worked really closely with families to help try and support them in helping their learners to be successful. And so we're excited about the future and the opportunities that they will have moving into first grade and what that will look like for them. But we also really appreciate their efforts of they've taken this on and kind of a new opportunity, but also a little uncharted waters in terms of what we've been doing. So I figured it'd be best to hear from them. So I'll pass it on to them, and they can go in whatever order they'd like to talk about it.
Well, we're going to definitely tag team this. So I'm Nicole Garza, I'm the principal at Lewis and Clark, and this is Emily Smith. And feel free to ask questions as we kind of work through. We're just going to kind of give you a rundown of how our program works and what it looks like, and then the positive effects of the different people it's had in our district, and then some challenges that we've figured out throughout this year, and then kind of our vision for the future. So feel free to stop us at any time. So our program consists of, or Emily's program consists of 9 learners from 5 different elementary schools throughout our district. And these learners were identified within the first 6 weeks of school by administrators and teachers. They were brought to our district intervention team, and we used a rubric. We went and did some observations and kind of decided based on that rubric system of who should qualify and would benefit from this program. So we wanted to make sure that we're hitting the learners with the most significant need. You want to go to the next one? Do you want me to keep going? Oh, great. Okay, perfect. Okay, so our program focus was really to allow our learners to learn the structure of a school setting. So a lot of our learners came to us with very little background in an educational setting, if any. I think we had 1 learner from the Lincoln Center, and then the majority of them came without any daycare exposure, and so they really were just learning how to function appropriately in a kindergarten classroom. And so the program focused on de-escalation skills, self-regulation, learners being able to identify their emotions, and then appropriate coping skills with those emotions so that they can transition back into their homeschool classrooms and be successful. And so our attendance this year for the majority of our learners, for the 9 of them, has been very consistent. Their parents are very great about getting them there. Transportation has provided transportation for those those learners that needed it, which has been a huge success in maintaining relationships with their home schools, because really the program is meant to last a year and then they transition to their home schools. So those learners that go in the morning, they get bused to their home school, and then they get to sometimes eat breakfast, push into a classroom, get to work with the counselor or do some of their special services at that time. And then at the end of the day, they get to go back. And so that provides those principals and staff a chance to build relationships with those learners, so they have that built in place when they return.
And it is full day, right?
Mhm.
It's full day, just
Yeah, it is. Our program is just a little bit different. It goes 9 to 2, and so Lewis and Clark starts at 8:30. And so because of transportation, the way they did the routes, it's a little bit shorter of a day, but it's perfect for them. So, and it gives some prep time. And then we'd really like to toot Ms. Smith's horn on this one, but they have grown immensely in many categories, especially behavior and social emotionally, but academically, this program is not necessarily academically based. Even though we do academics, it definitely starts much later, because we're just trying to teach them how to stand in line, sit on a rug, be able to be in the capacity of other learners without hitting, kicking, those kind of things. And so, yeah, it's definitely a slower start to the academics. So these learners grew 18 percentage points for proficiency this year, which is amazing. They started at 26% proficient and ended at 44% proficient, which is incredible. And a very big kudos to Emily and her team. It's a program, they use ISIP, and they don't use it every day like most kindergarten programs do, so they don't see it. It's much more infrequent, which can be more difficult, and it's a computer-based program, so that can be hard for those learners with their attention too. So excited for them. And then next year, our learners will transition back to their home schools. Like I said, we've worked really hard at holding transition meetings with the principals of those schools and communicating with them along with parents what that will look like. So we've invited those administrators and even teachers that they think might be having those kids next year to come in and observe them in Miss Smith's classroom, and then communicating, these are the things that work, these are their motivators, these are their triggers, these are the things that we've seen them be successful. So it will hopefully make their transition back to their schools very successful for everybody, including learners. So that's kind of the logistics of our program. I'll let Ms. Smith share her
I'll speak to
stuff.
some positives that we've seen. As far as the learners, just being able to stay in school, not having to go home because of behavior, having to call parents, or getting pulled out of a classroom. I do self-contained, so they don't hardly ever, they never leave my classroom. Like, even if they're having a behavior, we really work hard at keeping them in the classroom and working through those behaviors. They've learned positive interactions with staff and with each other to really like school. I think they all like to come now, which wasn't the case when they were in trouble all the time. So that's been a big plus. Another positive too is that they're able to still go to PE music, our small group with our counselor, and it looks a little different for us, but I think in their previous schools, they didn't always get to go to those because of their behavior. They would disrupt the whole class, and so now they're actually getting to participate and really learn from those interactions.
So can I ask a question there?
Yeah.
So obviously this is kindergarten, so you're saying they must have started later in the year then?
So they started their
The first 6
homeschool.
weeks?
Yep, and then they were identified as, because sometimes kids just need time, right? They need to figure out their new environment and the rules and how to work with their new teacher. And so we wanted them to have the opportunity to figure that out before we pulled them out of their gen ed classroom. So, yeah. Some positive for parents. They're not getting called to come pick up kids or fighting them. I mean, of course, they're still kids, so there's days they don't want to come, of course, but for the most part, I think it's easier to get them to school. We've been able to provide parenting workshops. We had a professor from ISU from the school psychology present to the parents to kind of help give them some parenting skills and techniques, especially going into the summer, and how to help them throughout the summer. We've been very lucky to have Dave Meitner from Health West, and he has been phenomenal to help these parents get other support services through Health West as far as physicians and medication care and outside parenting resources. And then just with my small amount of kids, I'm able to do daily communication with them and really stay in the loop with everybody, and I think parents really appreciate that. Positive effects for their homeschools. The kindergarten classes that they came from, I've heard from a lot of those kindergarten teachers that they now have a classroom they can teach. And so it's really helped those 5 classrooms be able to keep their kiddos learning and the structure stay consistent now that there's the major behaviors kind of removed. We also really like how Ms. Garza said that they still have those relationships with their home schools when they go there in the morning or after school, because I think that's really important. They need to have a place to be. Challenges. We'll just kind of say some major ones. I didn't really realize how physical and aggressive kindergartners can be. I taught first grade for 17 years and I thought I saw it all, but I definitely have not. And so that was a big challenge to get used to, and just kind of the intervention that we had to kind of put in place to figure that part out was.
Because you're not allowed to restrain the,
I'm
if they decide
certified.
to tear the room apart, you just have to let them?
Well, it kind of depends, because I do try to, I should go back to positive, and I think we kind of talked about it somewhere, is with only 9 kids, I'm able to see their triggers a little bit quicker than when you have a class full of 22, 23. And so, because I know their triggers, what they are, and then their behaviors are still going to happen because they still get triggered. Some of their behaviors or their triggers would be, I don't want to say a choice, but they like to leave the classroom. They like to get pulled out with a behavior tech or go with the principal. And so me really trying to keep them with my expectations in my classroom makes that part challenging when they try to destroy. I let them, if it's their stuff, they can ruin whatever they want, but they're not allowed to ruin my stuff.
We have
We're
a
aggressive.
built-in calm down space for them to go, and sometimes we have to transition them to that, especially at the beginning of the year. But the positive is now they know that that's available to them, and they know that they can still earn their reward and they can turn their day around even if they access that calm down spot. And that was our goal, is to get them to recognize, I need this, and so I'm going to go here. I'm going to use it as a tool, not a toy, and that's a teaching piece too, right? That I could definitely stay in there all day if I wanted to, but that is not the choice. And so our staff in there are CPI certified, so if a learner was at risk of hurting themselves or others, a significant risk, after de-escalation strategies, we would, use that tool if we had to, but typically, we are able to de-escalate them or give them options because of that small environment, which is super helpful.
And it definitely has decreased as we've gone. The beginning was very rough, but now it's, very rarely that.
And how many paras do you have with you?
I have 2.
You have 2, so there's 3 of you in the room at all times.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Another challenge was that because it is behavior-based, our academics is so widespread. And that was also a trigger for some of them, was their mainstream classroom was just too hard or too easy, and so that's where their behaviors came from. And so we had both sides of the spectrum. So that's been a challenge of kind of making it fun and engaging, but also keeping them learning at all their spots. But that's every teacher, right? Every classroom's like that, so that's fine. Another challenge has been parent engagement. We have it's again a spectrum. We have parents that are incredibly involved and are there constantly and very they communicate great, and then others that it's a little harder to get them on board all the time. So that's been a challenge.
So I can ask a question about that. Of these kids, when they were selected, did you have any parents that did not want their child put in this, or were they all?
We had a couple that were questioning, and so they were welcome to come, and we open the classroom up to them to come and look at it, talk to me, talk to my paras. But it definitely was a team. Yeah, the parents had to be on board before we agreed. Not that I know of any. Said
No, we didn't have anybody said no.
So they all wanted to try.
I think that was the good part about having them at their home schools, because they had that communication with the home school also about the behaviors and the struggles they were having. And so those parents knew that their learners were struggling. If it had just been right off the top that we had pulled those learners, it would have been probably a harder transition.
Right, sure.
But because they knew what was going on, they knew that this was probably the best fit for them.
Great.
A challenge too is just finding coverage if I am gone or sick, or I have children too, and so sometimes when I have to
You're
take
not
it,
allowed.
I know. I've learned that. I don't think I've ever taken so few days in my whole life. And so just finding a sub or a para sub that is willing to step into that classroom. We've had one sub that just, it was not a good fit, and it was kind of a struggle. So that's been a struggle for us a little bit. Another challenge is I'm just not ready to send them on yet. Like, just a little more time, right? And that's every teacher. But just because I did start so late, we let them try their kindergarten classroom for so long. And then by the time we did all of our observations and figured out transportation and parents figured out how they were going to get them, there was just a chunk of time at the beginning. So I just don't feel like I've had a whole year. And we're really curious if another year of intervention for behavior would be beneficial, just to make sure they're really solid on their foundation.
Would that just be a case by case and up to their home school?
That's the challenge.
Yeah. I mean,
Usually
grade,
they would
I
come
know.
with a recommendation.
Right.
Yeah,
but it would
and
just be
there's not all of
completely
them,
up
like
to
there's
their
definitely
teacher,
some
right?
that I'm like, they are gonna need support, but they will do it, and every school has a behavior tech, and they're just gonna have to build those relationships and make it work. And they can make it work, and then there's others, it's just like, oh, I just need a little bit more
So would
support.
you have recommended a kindergarten again or a first grade?
We have one that's gonna do kindergarten again. Our recommendation is for her to be retained for kindergarten again. She's, just needs a little bit more
But
time.
in her home
that.
school?
Yes.
correct.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think that kind of ties the questions you're asking her to the visions going forward. And
Right.
these are like, right, if everything could happen and fall into place perfectly. But I think our idea is to the later start, we do like that, even though at the end it's harder because we're not quite ready to send them off. But our vision for the future is that Ms. Smith will push in at the beginning of the next year and touch base with those learners and the teachers and help support them along with her paras, because they know them so well. And so that will be an additional support moving forward that they will have in those home schools of those learners. So we would like to implement that and use that time really wisely to help those learners transition. And it'll be a familiar face for them, because transitions are hard for everybody.
Because I'm assuming it will still be the 6-week period of time.
Correct.
To
Yeah.
identify.
Yeah,
next
as far as we know, that's kind of the plan, yes. And then to continue the program, our hopes are that someday the program can grow and be a K-1 and have a transitional first grade, because we definitely have a need for additional support in first grade for those high behaviors. And so as Emily and I have talked about it, having a kindergarten and a first grade, and then keeping those kids, so the ones that needed it, the ones that weren't quite ready to go back for first grade, and use that more as a push-in model. But then, right, if it all worked out, Mrs. Smith would move to first grade with that same group, and then they would just kind of rotate each year so that she would continue to work with them and push in with those learners into the gen ed classroom with supports. So, and that's kind of what our vision is for next year, is to look at transitioning our kindergarten kids earlier into the lunchroom, earlier into recess with the other kindergarten classes. We just weren't sure how it was going to work, and it was really trial and error this year. So it was one area we identified that maybe, depending on the learners next year, they're going to be a whole different group. So what they come with could really benefit them moving in with other kids quicker, or it might not. So those are the kind of things. And then enhancing our parent engagement, we're going to continue to work on that piece. It's a huge factor for that demographic of learner, because they have those same behaviors at home, and a lot of those parents are just doing the best they can. So we're gonna try to provide them some parenting classes once a month versus we just kind of started it at the end of this year. So that is our developmental kindergarten
I
in a
have to say,
nutshell.
I mean, I was one of the members that really was on the fence. And I, you know.
And we are so
we
grateful.
made AJ, you know, I would put him through the ringer on this one, and I'm so pleased to hear how well it's gone. And now I'm sitting here thinking, you know, would a potential future be more than having this program at more than one school? Do you want to keep it at just, do you have room for a first grade program if it were to expand like that in the school? And is 9, because I'm, you know, as much as there's how many kids in our district, surely there's more than 9 that could have used this.
And we,
And it was.
go ahead, Emma,
Oh, no.
go ahead. No,
It was interesting because I think we observed 18 kindergartners, and we just really felt the need for what the program was only fit those 9. And now that I had 9, I was like, that was a good number. Because some days the 3 adults was not enough. Like Nicole can vouch, like we were calling for more help, you know, especially at the beginning. I think we needed a lot more support, obviously, but.
And I think as far as the need goes, we definitely see, especially in K-1, a real need for this level of support. It seems like after first grade, but most of, especially at the beginning of the year, most of the learners that we get to what we call our DIT, District Intervention Team, I would say 80% of them at our first meeting are kindergartners or first graders. At that point, you know, they start to mature a little more. There's still a need, but it's much smaller once they hit 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade.
I mean, it's that whole
It's-
foundation, you know.
it really
with the Head
is.
Start program, you start them early, yeah.
Successful early on otherwise.
And I love the parent interact, that's great.
And I think we had initially talked about putting this in at multiple schools and locations, but because of transportation and some of the limitations, we just decided, and plus cost, just decided to try one and see how it goes as a starting point. And, you know, down the road, we can look and consider things, but definitely it would be something K-1 and seeing what that looked like. Her space is not huge where she's at right now, so numbers, it's great for what she's using it for, but it would be hard for her to get more learner. I mean, they could do a few more, but to get 2 classes in there would not be possible.
Sure, yeah.
Do you have any other questions for us? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for
No,
letting us
thank you. I
talk
think
to you
that
about our
sounds great.
program.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
love it.
Thank you.
And I love the plan of the 6 weeks at beginning of the next year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you. Next, we will have an annual overview of the CTE programs provided by Rhonda Maris.
Well, hello. It's always fun to come and share great news. So it is exciting every year to come and give you the overview of how CTE has done in the year, and wow, this is really loud. So I think you have this slideshow on your, okay.
Online, yeah, we have it online.
All right, so the first thing I just wanted to remind you is that all CTE teachers are Idaho certified. Some come through the educational pathway at a university, but the majority of them that work in CTE come out of industry. And so then they're certified through CTE, the state level. And then the next slide, I just wanted to kind of give you the year in review for last year so that you would understand the magnitude of CTE in the state of Idaho. But 72,000 students last year were in a CTE program. And the total number of CTE programs increased by 35%. Juniors and seniors who completed capstones increased by 19% last year. And then these are graduation comparisons. So 94% of CTE concentrators, meaning a student who went through a pathway and completed the capstone, they graduate from high school compared to the state at 80%. And I got these numbers directly from the state review for CTE. 48% of concentrators go on to college versus 42% of all Idaho grads. And 95% of concentrators either join the workforce, attend a post-secondary education, or the military in the fall. And we know that because we make literally hundreds of phone calls a year after they graduate to find out where they're at and what they're doing. And parents are super excited to talk to us about it. They're excited to tell us what their kids are doing. As far as workplace readiness, the next slide, 79% of our district, 79% is our pass rate for the district. And we test every senior who's taken 2 or more CTE classes in the 4 years. So they may have taken teen living as a freshman, and then as a sophomore took BCA 1. We still test them as a senior to see if they're ready for work. In our technical skills assessment, last year we had 100% pass rate in vet tech, natural resources, engineering, and rehab services. And then in apparel, digital communications, CNA, farm tech, and welding, it was between 80 and 97%. So our students are doing really well. Last year, 112 cords, those beautiful bright green cords.
212.
Sorry, what did I say?
112.
Oh, no, 212. No, we do not want to miss those 100 kids. 212, which was an increase of 41%, and I do really love seeing them walk across the stage at graduation with those on. And last year, 162 students received the Idaho Diploma Seal for CTE, which was a 97% increase from the year before, because this is the second year that we had done it. In order to get that diploma seal, which is just a little tiny thing, it's a little bit, like a $50 size, they completed a pathway, passed workplace readiness, passed their TSA, earned some type of an industry certification specific to their pathway, and got the micro badges through SkillStack. So in our district, next slide, our district, there are really two kinds of, plates that we have. We have a plate that has all of our CTE cluster programs, meaning there are 2 or more classes in a state identified program area, but they don't lead to a capstone. So those are really great introductory classes or exploratory classes. So you can see that at New Horizons we have ag, business, and family consumer science. At Century Highland and Pokey, we have business, family consumer science, and health professions. So great classes to help kids figure out where they might want to go. The other side, the next plate, is a pathway, which for us is 3 2-hour blocks. They have an introduction class, an intermediate classes, and then a capstone. And that would be the whole pathway. And those students are the ones who take the TSA, the workplace readiness, earn those industry certifications, and have dual credit opportunities. So the next slide talks about PV Tech, and PV Tech is the regional CTE center, and they have all the components of the pathway plus the industry work experiences that go on. It's the highest rigor of education in CTE, and those programs are only offered in one location, and luckily now we have that building, right? So all of those things are in PV Tech. The funding that supports those programs is CTC funding, and it's just like added cost funds, only it supports the CTE pathways.
And that cannot be included, that cannot be used for any kind of salaries or compensation, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Is that where the busing comes from?
No.
No.
That comes from, straight from the state.
Right. I'm assuming so. I don't really know about busing.
Yeah, reimbursed. by the
Okay.
state,
85% is what I understand.
Yes. The next slide is our beautiful building. It's coming right along. The next slide just talks about the Idaho Career Ready Grant. To this date, we still have received the largest amount at $6.5 million, and those funds are being used to remodel and build PV Tech. And then R&M Steel, Rob Roberts, he donated the metal structure, which if you haven't driven by lately, you really should, because any day they're gonna be starting putting up walls. So that's going really well.
You should put the value of that on here, the
The-
dollar value, what, I don't know.
I
And
will.
If we have that.
I
but
have
that
a
would be
pen,
interesting
so
to
I'll
know
write
what the
that down.
value. If you're allowed to do that, but.
Jonathan probably actually knows that value, so.
Not off the top of my head.
Oh,
no.
okay. Okay.
Jonathan, is it in the neighborhood of 450,000?
I thought it started with 3, but I could be wrong.
Okay, all right, so that's a
Yeah.
ballpark for you
I'll find
then.
out.
Yeah.
But that would be good to know.
Yeah, 350 to 450 would be the range, I would say.
So the next slide are all the pathways that we'll be offering next year. We're opening 3 new ones, which is broadcasting, construction trades, and graphic design. The next slide will give you the bridge that we're building to ISU. So this year, we added to our list and added civil engineering. We only had one student go to civil engineering this year. Next year, we have 5 that have requested it. And in order to go to those programs, they really have to meet the ISU standards. So they have to meet any prerequisites that they require, pass an ALEX test. They go up and they meet with the instructors, you know, to make sure that they're going to be a good fit and that they're ready to, you know, be at ISU's campus and have ISU transcripted grades. Next year, we're opening cosmetology and diesel mechanics. And so we have students that will go to both of those.
And
So
that's
it's been a
at
great
Idaho
partnership at ISU, yes, at ISU. The next slide, you know, a really important part of CTE is offering students a leadership opportunity. And so these are the clubs that are also, you know, reflective of these classes. On yours, I'm apologizing right now, I left off FFA, I put it on mine, because I thought maybe we were projecting. But this is where students really get to have those leadership opportunities. Our BPA students just came back from nationals, and I know they did really well because they all had callbacks, and they sent me a picture. They all have medals, so I can't really tell you how they did, but they medaled, all 5 of them. So they do really well, and this is a fun thing for students to do. It helps them to have some connection with students like-minded outside the classroom. As far as our funding, this was really a banner year for us, beyond the grants we just talked about. So our CTE added cost funds, those are the funds that come in every year to support the classrooms with supplies, equipment, professional development for teachers. This year, we were able to get one-time funds from the state, which was identified to help either buy new equipment, replace equipment that was just wearing out or out of industry standard, or buy additional equipment. And so we bought things like brand new computer labs for all the machines that were going down. Normally, we only replace 1 or 2 labs. This year, we were able to replace almost all of them. You know, just important things that they wouldn't normally have. We have a press brake now that for the welding shop that I think the one we have at Highland currently is probably more than 50 years old. So it was great to get these one-time funds. We also got a $5,000, it's called an IPQ grant. The state awards those for a quality program, and that's for the fashion and textiles program. In her first year, all of her students passed the TSA, so they rewarded her with $5,000. She got these cool new things for her classroom. We also got the Leading Idaho grant for welding, and we're able to buy a shear and a rolling table, and I don't know, something else that went with that. But these are very expensive pieces of equipment that normally it would take us a while to budget for, that we'd have to plan out. So having those grants was really a benefit. Our Perkins grant came in at $208, which of course we don't have any control over how much that's going to be. Our career technical school money was $235, and so we came in with just a little over than $1 million this year to spend on CTE. So a lot of great things we're being able to purchase this year.
Can I ask you, on the CTE added cost funds and the career technical school at the bottom, where are both of those coming from? What's the different source? Are they different source?
No, they both come from the state, from CTE, but one is for example, all of the cluster programs that we just talked about, those all get CTE added cost funds. And
So it's based on the number of programs that you have?
Right,
Okay.
right. It's specifically the number of programs and the type of program. Because, for example, welding gets, I believe, $17,000, and an IoT gets $6,000 because they feel it just costs so much more. The reality of it is, though, welding costs us well over $40,000 on just a regular year. Not on a year that we're buying anything extra. So it's very expensive. Like, this is why it's super great we get this money, because school districts wouldn't be able to afford CTE because it's a high dollar, it's high dollar classes, you know?
And the welding, can I just, it's a bit of a tangent, sorry. The welding instructor comes from our FTEs, is that right?
Yes.
Or is that not through Idaho State, even though they went to Idaho State?
Right, no,
Okay.
no, he's the school district 25 employee.
Okay, I want to ask another question about that, but I'll remember at the end.
Okay.
Oh, one other thing is, did you apply for these grants? Like, who did the grants? Because that's a lot of work.
So I always write the grant for the Leading Idaho and the Perkins grant, but that's really based on what our technical advisory board members say we need. We ask them that question and say, what is it in industry that you have that maybe we need to upgrade? And then that's how we figure out. Sometimes, you know, it's like, there's a grant that's opening tomorrow, and I don't know that we will really apply for it because we're really set. And so there's not a reason to go after that money unless we really need it. And so that's kind of my philosophy, is that there's a lot of schools out there that probably could use that money. And right now, we don't have a need. We're really set pretty good for the next year. Now, next year, that may not be true, and I'll be applying immediately as soon as it
Well,
opens.
thank you for
But-
doing that. I know
Thanks.
that's a lot of work.
When you, technical advisory committee, who is that?
Those are businesses
Okay.
that support whichever pathway. So just yesterday, I was with the first responders, and so we have all the law agencies, the legal agencies, so Pocatello PD, Chubbuck PD, ISP. We also have EMS represented, Pocatello, Chubbuck Fire, North Bannock Fire.
So each pathway has their own advisory.
They all have their
committee.
own advisory. So
That's
we
a
have
lot of-
lots of meetings with lots of people in the community.
Right, no, that's great.
So they're always very complimentary and excited, and willing to give us good advice so that we know that we're headed in the right direction.
That's great.
So last slide, this, you know, I always try to have some goals ready for the next year. Probably our number one goal is we just want to strengthen our current pathways, especially that we're pulling more teachers into the building. And successfully open the building next fall. That's a big goal. Some pathways that we're still exploring and looking at is the information technology. We don't have an IT program in this district, which would be great to have. We piloted this year for the state a mental health assistant class. It's not a pathway, but after speaking with people around the state in the industry, there's clearly a need for this. And so this will be a class that we're going to encourage all of our health profession students to take if they want to. Not required, it's just optional for them, but it's been highly successful. This year we had 27 students. Next year we have 54, so we'll run 2 sections. A surgical technician, and then the world of drones is just ever expanding. So we have drones, but we need to figure out how to capture that in a better way. And then just kind of more on a school-wide level, we're really trying to create a culture in that building of young professionals that are prepared to take the next step, whether that's right into industry or going on to that associate or going on for a bachelor's. Whatever that is, we're trying to get them ready. You know, on a kind of a side note, but still being pursued, is that I do feel like we need to start pursuing dedicated FTE for CTE programs. And so that's going to take a lot of different conversations out in the state, but, you know, I started that conversation today with Dr. Long, who's the head of CTE, and just said, you know, I need you to start thinking about this because in order to grow and expand, we need FTE. That's what we need.
Because how many teachers right now, I mean, if there was dedicated, how many do you think you would need?
They're teaching for us right now?
Yeah, for next year, if you were to have a fully
There's
staffed.
22 CTE teachers.
There's 22.
Mm-hmm.
And any programs you're not because you don't have FTEs?
Yes. Yes.
And that was a suggestion that I proposed to the board, as far as resolutions for ISBA, is that we would consider, even next week, I had Renee put it on the agenda to talk about possible resolutions, and that's one of them. And then maybe a couple other ideas, but we will pursue it on this side if the board authorizes us to do that.
I was wondering, because if we ask for more funding, I don't know, I mean, we might get it, but what about as an alternative, ask? Tell me what you think about this. You know, all the high school students have the $5,000 for their,
Launch?
for the not launch, but what is it? advanced opportunity money. I am wondering if, so much of that goes unused, I'm wondering if some of the kids could use some of their advanced opportunity, if some of that money can be used for FTEs for these, because it can't be currently, because it goes to Idaho State, it goes to, the other places. And this is outside of the school. I'm just wondering if that could be, maybe possibly, if the student hasn't used that, if we could maybe access some, who is participating in this. That's funding that's already in place, and I'm wondering if that would be more of a proposal that would fly.
I have no idea.
Because that's still money from the state.
Right.
It's just that it's already in place.
Right.
And it might be easier to get.
Who knows?
Because I hate to ask for something and then get nothing, and then we're,
I think it's worth pursuing both avenues, really.
Because, I mean, really, this just feels like it is that category. I know it's different, but anyway, that was my question.
Anyone have anything else? It's going great.
No, that's
Thank
fantastic.
you, Rhonda.
Come over
I appreciate
anytime.
it.
See a lot of happy kids.
So good, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, next we'll have Highland High School Committee and Project Update provided by Jonathan Balls and board representatives.
They actually, is that the PV Tech update still on it?
Oh,
Yeah.
that is PV.
So we skipped, E,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and that's more, no, it's just.
So you want to, yes, you would do the PV Tech update first.
Or, yeah,
Yep.
I actually have those numbers if we wanna, and I'm gonna say we're both right. So the total cost of the building was $419,550. The donation amount was $358,200. So we basically paid for insulation, which is $61,350. And that came out of the grant, so still, yeah, really appreciate that. So, sorry, it took a little while
So
there.
we didn't pay for any of it?
We paid for the insulation,
Well, but it was the grant.
Oh, yeah, yes.
So
still-
we
still the grant.
really
Correct.
had all of it given to
Correct.
us.
The grant is, just a full transparency, the grant is just a hair short of what it cost for the building, and so we're gonna use ESSER funds
okay.
because it provides some more social distancing in our high schools, as PV Tech gets filled up, and so that's how we're
Yeah.
using that money.
That's great.
So Raymond, Jim, kind of any updates for the rest of the board for PV Tech, I guess? Things are.
Everything's trying to go see how much they've improved, how much progress they've made over there. And how much, I haven't been over there the last couple of days. I suppose they probably got all the roof on, all the
Correct.
metal on the roof.
Correct, so they've got the roof on, the insulation, the under decking, and
And all the vinyl in between.
and Rhonda says they'll start doing the
Sides.
walls, and then they'll start doing the underground plumbing, underground electrical as well.
And
And
they get the concrete poured down.
correct, and then they'll be able to pull the concrete very last.
I guess it will be closed after this meeting, but I'm going to come over very
should.
soon. I'm just going to drop by.
A couple weeks ago, I went through, my
So
dad was in
great.
town, and just the walls up inside, now just really being able to visualize the size of those rooms too. I mean, the classrooms are massive, which,
Yeah.
yeah, it's gonna be a great space.
It's going good. And then we're also, Dr. Hell is even spearheading greatly on our interior decorating inside, making sure it looks as good on the inside as it does on the outside. So that's
And what's going on with that?
do you want to jump on there? It's.
Who is our interior decorator?
So we work through our architect to, they select one because that's part of
Yeah,
our
it's
bid
underneath that.
package,
Yep.
is that they will provide that service. And so we're working with Katie, I don't recall her name, from Josephine West, which they're out of Boise. And so she has been on a couple calls with us, Zoom calls, and then here on site once, and then we have another one scheduled for morning. And we're just looking at the color palette of the district a little bit to guide, with the branding, but also give PV Tech its own identity as well. So some complementary colors to go with that. So we'll be working with Stewart's Media and Design Group to help us come up with some interior finishes as far as silhouettes or pictures, something similar. Stewart's did these signs for us here, these acrylics. And so we're looking at some alternative ideas for that on a budget. And then again, some silhouettes, the graphics, the paint colors with accent walls and the lighting. So we want to make it professional and inviting, as Rhonda says, it's a professional learning community, essentially. And so that's what we would like to create. We talked about some banners on the lights outside. Those lights are not, or those
Light
poles are
poles,
not
yeah.
rated for real high winds. And so when you throw a banner on there, it becomes a bit of a sailboat, and we're worried it'll just take off or like a kite or something. So they do have some different mesh, some different materials, and Courtney is pretty aware of those. And then we'll also work with Jeremy from Signworks, who did the wraps for the columns, and we'll put a wrap on each of the pods that demonstrate what areas of CTE are represented in those different pod areas.
Is the floor, is it gonna be carpet or any of the poured concrete like we saw in?
So
It is-
primarily, this will be the carpeted
Correct.
facility, and everywhere that there has been carpet, I think we're gonna be able to salvage a good chunk of that
Yeah.
for the main area, the office, the hallways. The classrooms will be a different pattern, but again, it's complementary to what we have in the other spaces.
So it's the same, the carpet that was there then? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Is
a
that
good chunk of
salvage?
that will be
Okay,
used
so-
primarily in about 2/3 of the building. The industrial space will be concrete.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so then,
Carpet.
so the color palette will kind of be a little bit based on what we have?
Yes,
Okay.
and then
Also-
the existing classrooms, those will be tied into the same main color and the accent walls as the additional classroom spaces.
And the
So
kitchen
the
will have
main-
some concrete in it also, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, it will. And then
And the cooking
we've
area.
been able to salvage all the doors, the lighting, fixtures, and so we'll be using some of those, and again, with the lights, another complementary fixture to those drum lights that you've seen many times in the cafeteria space, the little cafe. And, yeah, and then kind of a feature or accent wall, or not an accent wall, I'll call it a focal point wall as you enter the main building, just down that way. Maybe do something with the PV logo. LED backlit is what we're exploring. And then around that, some pictures of what young people will be doing in those spaces.
Great.
That main space is a space that will be able to be rented and reserved, right? For people to,
Yeah, the
use it
renting
for-
part, we've not talked about that, but,
Sure.
for some
but
community
isn't it
events.
that main space?
Yeah, the gallery
Wasn't-
space is
The
what we're
gallery?
calling
So
that.
will that kind of lend itself to people being able to use it for,
Well, Yeah, again, the rentals for outside of maybe what we do, but anything that we're connected with, whether it be Kiwanis or Rotary or something like that,
Sure, sure.
we would love to host in there from time to time, just to get our community up to speed with what we're doing in that space. The rental, it will be, the doors will separate that space from the other, so it could be a secure area. And it is something we could talk about as far as a rental agreement with outside.
I just know
Is-
that was talked about
Early
when
on.
we were
Yeah,
early.
we
Yeah.
should. There will be some media in that area as far as presentations and so forth. So, yeah, we'll have 3 very large monitors similar to this on the wall on that, what is it, north wall?
The Home Depot wall
east,
or
probably.
the,
Yeah.
Probably east wall.
I guess it's the
Yeah.
east wall of the gallery space.
Yeah,
oh, okay,
against the classroom
Yeah.
side.
okay, yeah.
There'll be a chance for the culinary arts to have an opportunity to work with some food venues, right?
I think we're down the road on that one, as Rhonda and Sue have looked at offerings. I think we're going to stay at Spoketail High School for one trimester, sorry?
Partly the year next year.
Yeah, 1 or 2 trimesters, and then the culinary will move that direction.
That's great.
That's great.
And so probably at least a year out before we're able to do any type of catering or food
Yeah.
service. Yeah. that-
So do they project that we're gonna be opening by the first of school?
Jonathan? take that
Yes,
one.
yes. Every meeting, that's what we reemphasize. And because we need time to, the teachers to move in, and especially in that industrial space, that welding equipment just won't move like
Well, and
that.
isn't there some relocating too, right? Some
There
of the
will
ones
be.
that
Correct.
were in
There
the-
will be.
They're moving to another,
But so the answer is yes for right now, and we'll let you know, but we don't anticipate, they don't see anything that should delay the opening there.
Will we have an open house?
Absolutely.
Yes, you
Yeah,
bet.
yeah.
And then ACM, the construction group that's doing that for us, they're working 7 days a week, and they have 15 to 18 crew members there every day.
swarming the building. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's impressive.
so it's moving right along. We're
Hard to
very
get.
impressed with what
Are
they've
are
been
they
able to
available
do.
for Highland?
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, we've got a good.
Yeah, in fact,
We
when
do
we
have a
took
good
a
crew.
tour with
What's
key
the-
communicators, somebody else asked me that very question.
Yeah, yeah, so they're doing really
We
good.
have a good team.
Yes.
Do you want to move right into the Highland?
If you're
update?
up, yeah, that would be kind
think
of
that-
you and Heather kind of updating the board. There, again, inside of your packet are some meeting minutes. We did see our very first conceptual design there. There was several changes as I was writing in my blue ink. There were many things that will change there. Again, if you'll, I think we went through 5 renditions of just the wording, the program as they call it, in words, and so I anticipate drawings will be the similar pattern, 3 or 4 different renditions as we kind of go through that. And so, but Deanna and Heather, you were there as well. What, any updates that you have there, or any thoughts for the rest of the board? What?
I was just
Yeah.
thinking that the minutes look like they're pretty
Pretty thorough.
Yeah.
thorough. So it talked about, what different people said, and we don't need to read through those. But
I think the biggest thing was the discussion on the auditorium, which we've kind of given them the plan to reduce from the 900 to, was it 800?
Just
Or
Yeah,
850?
850,
to allow
and-
for the bigger
that.
stage.
And then the
Yeah.
existing auditorium space, because of what's happening on the stage, can't be removed. They'll extend the stage so they can actually put 2 classrooms where the stage was, and then still keep Deanna's idea of having some sort of a lecture space, because they were saying that the cost to renovate that auditorium into existing classrooms, the cost to level the floor, take out the seats, the lighting, the drop ceiling would be the equivalent of, a whole new brand new addition on.
Building
Brand
new
new.
classrooms.
Yeah.
From the
So
ground
this
up.
way, because they can't take the stage out, you extend that area, you make it into 2 classrooms, it's floor level, so you can still get out, but then you still leave that other side of the auditorium as a lecture space, lecture
Now,
hall.
I didn't know we were extending the stage. Are we extending it or just dividing it into 2 classrooms?
I thought it was a little bit of an extension because it wasn't.
Well, we'll
big
have to
enough.
just make sure it fits. So I don't know if we know that exactly, how much it will.
I mean, and again, I missed
So-
that one meeting where it kind of got,
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and
got
I don't know if we're down into that details if the
Yeah.
existing audit,
No.
but we'll make 2
Yeah.
classrooms fit. Basically, that's what
So
Freeman Hall will do.
Kent suggested the lecture hall because he said that they don't design a high school now without one, a new high school without one. And then I think we talked about this already at our last meeting, but just to reiterate, Travis texted, what is it?
Thunder Ridge
Thunder
was
Ridge,
the
and
one,
asked
yeah.
how often it's used, and they said every day, every hour. And it's the most requested reserved space for the community as well. So just to put, yeah,
I think
those
that-
are the reasons behind that, is
Yeah.
Kent suggesting that, and then the background. That's
Sure.
the background of that.
I think the other thing that is that to leave it entirely the way it is was much larger than a true lecture hall that we could use. So this way, if you put those
Right.
classrooms, the other thing that had come up was whether you put the choir there and he even said to soundproof the room because that would create, I don't know.
Be
There- I
challenging.
mean,
And
we're
that
getting into
was,
the weeds
idea
a little
was
bit,
thrown
but-
out, as far
yeah.
as I know.
Correct, yeah, no.
Yeah,
it's-
that was thrown out.
Was it? Okay,
Yeah,
I wasn't there for
definitely.
that, but.
Yeah, definitely, so.
And I guess the other thing that came up is we're not, and maybe Sue can confirm on this, the comment that might come up if we're not truly increasing the number of classroom size, but we are in the sense that we're building more usable classrooms. So we are still, while we may not be gaining as many classrooms or additional classrooms as initially thought about, we're getting more efficient use of classroom
Correct.
space, so it
And
is.
technically,
And
there's
there is
two
the possibility of the
additional
6
class-
additional, if
Right.
that's what,
Correct.
if that's the direction we want to go, there is that 6 classroom addition. Or they offered to make the plan for the 6 classroom addition for potential future, but either way.
Correct. So I'll remind the board again that we reviewed the budget scenarios, again, minimum, maximum, of several different components there. Of course, Bateman Hall, as we get closer through a drawing, then they're able to put some dollars to that. And then they'll be more involved in these, and they are involved anyway, but they'll be more involved regarding, the budget, make sure we can afford that. And of course, we'll bring that, those.
What's your comfort level? Because we seem to be over at this point.
Well, I'm still reserving.
Oh,
reserving
you're gonna
judgment.
reserve?
I'm still reserving. I mean, my comfort is right around that 60. I mean, in that min-max. We actually got some updated numbers on our House Bill 521. It went up
Oh, it did?
1 or 2, 200,000. Yeah, yep.
Well, that's good because.
Not a big number. Yeah.
And do we have a projected, because I saw, the governor handed checks to.
Oh, he was handing checks, yeah.
The
And
boys-
we're in line.
Where's our check?
Yeah, it was a paper check.
Yeah,
just so you-
or a cardboard check?
Yeah, yeah. So it's, actually, Dr. Howlett got some more information on how that with bonding, they can't just go out and flood the market with $1 billion of state of Idaho,
Yeah.
bonds. And so in the budget, since we might we'll eventually transition there, again, I'm gonna budget that next fiscal year, we should get all of that.
Yeah.
But it probably won't be all at once.
Gotcha,
At least that's where we're being told.
gotcha.
That makes sense.
So anyway, that's kind of the future, kind of the update. Again, we'll look at some more on these drawings, and then we'll talk more costs. And then with all that information, then it'll probably take a little break in the way of, I mean, Kent will still be working hard, but then it's mechanical, electrical, structural, how to tie into the existing building. That's where they will do a lot of their work on the background, trying to get us a construction set we can go out to bid for, and so.
One other thing that somebody reached out to me yesterday, and I don't even think Renee probably had a chance to even put it as an addendum because it was just yesterday, last night. Okay, so it's on the addendum.
Okay.
There was a misunderstanding, and I don't know how widespread it is, that our gym would seat only 1,000 because that's what the
Oh, no.
insurance will
Correct.
pay for. So what the misunderstanding is that the current gym will have bleachers, the bleachers will replace, and that current gym will seat about 1,000.
So when you say current, you're talking auxiliary,
The one
or
that's
the
already,
small
one that's
gym?
already there.
Yes,
That is not
yes.
built.
Correct.
And that gym will seat about 1,000, and that is insurance displacement cost.
That is correct.
It is not part of the rebuilding cost.
That is correct.
So we'll get those seats so that we are able to have events there for this next 3 years. And so that's the 1,000
Yep.
number. And that is covered by insurance, or at least mostly.
Yep, that's
And
what
then
we're
the
pushing
next.
for.
Oh, good. And then the other gym will be big enough for the school
Absolutely.
to fit, which at the 2,000
Yeah,
seats.
perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. I can
So,
see how
just
that
to
would
clear up
happen,
that
but
misunderstanding, because that number was thrown out.
It was.
And the insurance is paying for it, and it is, but that's the gym that's there already.
correct. With
not the gym
displacement,
that's
so
being built.
Highland doesn't have to, and it will also help our other high schools as well, Century and Pocatello, that we won't have to go as often to their facilities to host these
Yes.
games for Highland. So,
Yes.
yeah, thank you
And we
for
can
clearing
have
that up.
events. And the Highland students will be able to have a place for events. too.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's all I had
Is
unless,
that it? Okay,
unless there are
so
any
next will be-
questions. or-
Any other questions, or? Next is Brenda, Jonathan,
Okay.
and Doug. Wait,
Yeah,
are we
Yeah,
doing the
on the budget.
post-legislative tour? Okay.
Oh,
I
no,
thought-
no.
I thought
Is
we
that
already
on there?
did that.
No,
It is.
you're looking at the wrong, it's G, the budget material.
No, this is what I have in front of me.
Yes.
So, so the preliminary budget materials
Yep.
presented by Jonathan.
yeah, okay. So we have in front of you 5 or 6 pages. Again, this is this is preliminary. Even today, we've got some more information as we're headed towards our June 18th budget hearing. And about 10 days before that, we have to put it in the paper. It can still change, obviously, on June 18th. But the documents that you have in front of you is on the 100 fund. That's our general fund. That's our largest fund. So wanted to get these in front of you there. The first page is kind of more of the way that the state funds us. Again, it's on salary apportionment based on our learners attending school. And with that number, then they figure through different computations of a unit. Unit can be considered a classroom. And then with that unit, it says, okay, for each unit, you need, a portion of administrator and, 1.02 teacher and then classified, almost a third of a classified person for every classroom. And so that's kind of what this is going, and we try to estimate that, what our ADA, as you remember, average daily attendance, and what that will do there. Again, they divide it into 4 different sections of instructional pupil services, which is our counselors, psychs, and so forth, nurses, administrative staff, and then also classified. And so you can see how there's different factors there that they'll reimburse us for. And then it's with instructional staff, for example, it's on the average, just the average reimbursement. So it's a lot of computation, and we can dive in there as well. They'll also pay for benefits, and so that's kind of getting down that middle section, number of units. They will pay for insurance and discretionary. This is more of our, they call it the distribution factor. They call it entitlement. We call it more discretionary because we have to be able to use this to keep all of our buildings functioning with utilities and so forth. They reimburse us again according to our allocation for insurance. And then they'll also support us with the benefits. And these
So if I
basically,
understand this, we estimated 565, but our actual was 577 in units?
so it's actually reversed. So this
Oh.
year, we're at 577.
Gotcha.
Because we're still protected going from enrollment down to ADA.
Yeah, okay.
So our actual average daily attendance this year is 565. So as I look at, we look at the kindergarten numbers, they're coming in close. We don't foresee, a lot we feel it's fairly steady there as well. So I will mention, I was going to mention on the other page, again, this is a little bit lower than previous years. And so we have, appreciate Brenda and Sue and AJ, kind of as we're calling it, aligning our aligning our staffing to enrollment. So we've, through attrition, we've reduced our staffing by 14 FTEs. Positions, FTEs.
So that's through retirement?
Through retirement, yeah, through attrition. That was not an easy task, because again, we're 13 elementary schools, and so you have partials, and so we appreciate the staff that were able to move to a different school for that.
I think
Please.
there was about 4.
Oh.
That we just relocated.
Uh-huh. And it-
Reassigned them to a different school, and pretty much did that by a seniority arrangement.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I
So
know
how
we
does
had
it-
talked
I'm-
about at Wilcox that, well, no, it wasn't Wilcox. Anyway, we won't say which school. Actually, it was Indian Hills. Just that some of the classrooms were a lot less crowded than others. So is that what you mean by?
Correct, and
Kind of
that's
making it
looking at
more-
over the entire district of, how much, because again, we only get a certain amount of teachers, and we need to maximize the students that are in the seats in front of the teacher.
And
so
one
that's-
school, some schools consistently have more, and then there's a lot of room. in-
And sometimes you have bubbles, and I know Sue and AJ can talk more, and I just barely get into
Yeah.
that, just as it
Just
affects
kind of
funding, the
into-
bubbles that go through, some.
When you
swimming
say
pools.
seniority, you're saying that those with most seniority get to choose? If
First
they
pick
want to,
kinda thing.
okay, so
Yeah,
it's
so
offered
if
and then
we
they get
had-
to either stay or move.
Yeah, so if we
Okay.
had 7 positions open and we had these 4 folks that we will need to reassign, then out of those 7 positions, we would let that one who's most senior choose their first pick out of the 7.
Oh, I see.
So, I mean, there would still be 3 remaining, right? But, so, it worked out okay. I don't think we had any complications. Brenda and AJ are both nodding. Yeah, it's, may not be ideal, but for someone who's looking for a change of placement, maybe it's closer to home or whatever, and I think we had one of those. And someone was looking to change grades, and so they weren't able to change within their school because there wasn't a vacancy, but that same grade level came up in another school, so they opted to take that one. Yeah.
Very good.
That's good. I'm so glad it was able to be accomplished,
Mhm.
because that isn't what's happening up north.
Correct. So again, it's just trying to be proactive there as we look at our numbers, and it's always a little bit reactive, just because, okay, how many kids are gonna show up first day of school? And we do our very best to try to do that, but, so again, when we talk budgets, that's why we need just a little cushion in our fund balance, to be able to kind of absorb
So we
that.
didn't have to riff anyone.
No.
That's good.
Now, this doesn't look like Skyward. Is there a way in Skyward to get the same?
Correct. This is a report that I actually copied from Carl, just kind of a summary sheet that has that.
Because I was wondering if there is a way in Skyward to give a really kind of more complete summary, like a snapshot of our entire budget. Because there are so many different.
Correct.
Then
And
it would be a lot of pages. It would be a number of pages.
correct. And I think we'll get there if you can hang tight. I think we'll get there in those last 3 or 4 pages. At least it will be there. I just wanted to explain that last section. And the state calls it special distributions. And you can see the different categories. And there's a formula for each of these. Exceptional child support, their transportation, for example, is, it's a different funding mechanism that we try to do there. College and career advisors, digital content and curriculum gets a little bit, English language learners. And you can kind of see those. I tried to put in there, okay, we get $227 extra per English learner. That Raina gets to use there. And the first column is what I anticipate, again, with our units. The second in the box is what we got this on our February 15th payment. So you kind of see how that changed just a little bit. Literacy proficiency, again, this is with AJ. There's a lot of staffing that goes in there that this is basically our all-day kindergarten that gets funded from this literacy dollars.
So the February 15th was less than what we should have gotten? Is that what you're saying?
No, what
When you
I'm.
say the 1.7 is the difference.
When you say 1.7, where are you looking at?
The last column,
The box on the right.
Oh,
box on the right at very bottom, total state support. So the February 15th was, how does that work?
okay, so that's just the additional amount that we'll have. So you're doing great. You're just jumping ahead of me but that's
Oh,
just
sorry.
perfect. No, love it. Because again, they did increase some discretionary dollars. You see
Mhm.
on the difference there, that was 1.9 million. Well, but our insurance premiums for the state went down, so they're not giving as much money for us for insurance, which that's why it was so important to be tied with the state. So that was, about 1.2 million that they reduced, so the net is about 723,000. We are increasing a little bit on that base support as a total of those amounts, the salary and our discretionary dollars. And then they separate out the benefit apportionment. So that benefit apportionment looks nice. It's a little over 500,000. However, we are having an increase in PERSE. So we have to, both the employer side and the employee side, so we have to pay more into PERSE so they can balance theirs. And then you can see the individual items as well. Again, these are conservative. As I talked with AJ, say back on that literacy, that large amount from 2.3 to 2.5, it will probably come higher than the 2.3. But it just depends. It has both an enrollment component and a testing. So it depends on how our learners do on testing this spring that we'll see our dollars there. So the 1.7 is actually, we should get a little bit more in our budgets, and you'll see that going forward. Did that hopefully make sense a little bit there? You can see, again, I won't go through all the different line items, but you see the different special distributions that we get there for professional development, ISAT, safe and drug-free, technology, and so forth. The second page I put in there just because Carl normally did that. That's our salary-based apportionment, and there's a lot of moving parts there. That's why I tried to summarize it in the front page.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so, but if you want to dive into that at any time, again, part of it is, okay, where do we think our units are? Anything in red that we have to, put in there, and then it just calculates it at the end, and those numbers match that front sheet as well. This is kind of the big funding mechanism. So, and then, Madam Chair, so I think if you flip these pages, so Skyward is really good about putting all the data in a spreadsheet. So these reports I had created. There's actually 1,240 accounts in the 100 fund, and so these are all the revenue accounts that you will kind of see there. Again, you'll see what is that's a draft of what revenues we'll get for next year, what we estimate, the revised budget that we're still in, and then the budgets for the 2 previous years. So you can kind of see those go up and go down. For example, even just that first big line item, again, you'll notice the history of our supplemental levy. 3 years ago was at 9.25, but as we look down the bottom, we had a very healthy beginning balance, and so the board decided to reduce the ask for taxpayers down to 7.25. But then in fiscal year 24, what was that, a year ago in March, we had asked our taxpayers for 8.25 amount, and so now we're starting the second year of that amount. So you can kind of see if there's any questions or anything like that. The other big one, if you look down there, earnings on investment, you can see over that as interest rates go up, those amounts go up as well. Same thing with the base support. Again, the state has supported us through the career ladder there, especially last year, the jump from fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 24, and so forth. Okay, and so again, this is just a draft as we're massaging. The closer we can get to our budget hearing date, the more accurate we'll feel there.
What is the revenue in lieu of taxes, the
Okay,
271?
excellent question. That is actually, that has always been there, but in previous years, that was actually rolled up into the tort. And so that's actually an adjustment. I just barely realized that was that tort levy. And so that's where that amount was previously. So I need to kind of adjust that. Revenue in lieu of taxes is our ag. So this is over a decade ago, they gave some farmers property tax exemptions that hurt the schools. And so we actually get $8,260 every year. And then in 2013, they did it for personal property taxes amount, and then they did it again in 22. So that's what that is. Again, I will make this more consistent because I still feel it should be down in there, but previous, and Carl and I, we had rolled it up into the tort levy. So I will, that's one of those things I need to change, so thank you very much for that.
If my memory is correct, it was about 255,000 maybe a year or two ago.
Correct.
And rather than have 4 line items on our taxes, we thought the district could absorb that to 55 and not pass that on to the community members. Again, we, through our previous board, had reduced that 9.25 down to 7.25. That was another option for the board at that time to just absorb the tort levy into the general education fund and the budget of the 100 fund.
Correct.
essentially.
And we'll show you that as we get a little bit closer, and specifically in August is when I have to submit our report to the county. But again, this is just kind of for the budgets and kind of a set of a benchmark there. Then the other.
Can I ask one other, because I'm
Please, of
sure,
course.
I should know this.
No,
but-
you're good.
The $4 million difference in the other state support, that's related to, see where it says 7.6 million?
Yes,
versus-
yep, I do that, yep.
Remind me again where.
No, that's great. So if you look in fiscal year '23, it's about that same
Right.
3.7. So this year, remember, to help us transition from
Okay.
the enrollment to ADA, so with 3.8 million.
That's where that's being
Yep,
represented.
3.8 million.
What's
was-
that?
You're getting the hang of this.
Yeah, you are, yep.
Good luck, Ray.
But, and so yeah, it's, and thank you, and we could go number by number, okay,
No,
why
no,
is
no, no.
this?
I-
And some
I'm
of them
looking
I
for the
know.
outliers and
Yep,
make
that's
sure.
great. That's definitely, that's great to look at that. So obviously, in that amount helps our beginning balance that, that we try to estimate there. That'll be a little bit over. Leaves us with some a little bit of flexibility, going to in the year. So, again, then the last one. Again, these account codes are 19 digits, and there's all sorts of different, from programs to objects to functions to even location. So if you want anything at Idaho, we can give you a list of anything there. This is just, again, what we previously presented, expenses by object, and that kind of shows more of a position in these 100 fund. That's the salaries. So, as you see, the 111, 112, the hundreds are salaries. You can again see those in the different categories. The 200s are benefits, PERSI, Social Security, Medicare, life insurance, and so forth.
So again, I'm in the weeds.
Please, go
All
ahead.
the salaries in the hundreds, everyone goes up except paraprofessionals. How did that happen?
Okay, so part of that could be, it
Even
wasn't.
the substitute paraprofessionals, yeah, that's down.
Okay, and so, again, these aren't individual raises. So
Right.
I will say that, without negotiations being started and so forth, they're just very slim for anything like that. Part of it could be that we just couldn't find the paraprofessionals.
Okay.
And so to budget, I mean, the individual people will get, their movement or
There wasn't
on the
any
salary,
to pay.
but just there is money there to pay, it's just sometimes we might not be able to find the position there. But I can definitely dive into that, because that's absolutely that we need to, 2.3
And
to
so
2.
this is the 100 fund, Mr. Balls, and so.
It is. That is
At
correct.
times, we utilize Title I
Oh, thank you.
funding.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
And we also use the literacy money, so we
Oh,
may be
sure.
moving,
Okay, so that's just what's coming out of the 100
The 100
fund.
fund,
There are
correct.
other funds that, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And-
I think in our
Excellent.
support in
Thank you,
special
Dr. Howell.
education, we picked
It's
up
there.
quite a number of our
Okay.
paras in there this year.
That is
Okay,
correct.
I get that now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Claire, because, this is just the 100 fund, and a lot of the pairs are in our 257 fund, which are special ed
Okay,
and
that
title.
makes sense then.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that. Again, Percy, you can see that going up a little bit. I will report something positive. Our workman's comp is going down slightly, and so you'll see that there. So again, the district employees are being a little more safe.
Is
So
there a
we-
caveat, though, that that'll go up next year?
Possibly. It seems
So
how.
it's a 3-year window, it's a range.
Correct.
And so, that premium is determined by the range. From 1 year will drop off, but we pick up another.
And it just depends if the one that drops off, was it lower or higher in the amount of claims
Mhm.
that we had there?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, the 300s are purchase services. You can see there, other professional technical services, a lot of that is with Janelle and our special needs students. Utilities, of course, are there as well, computer services, and so forth. 400 category is supplies. So you can kind of see there. Textbooks, supplies, textbooks, and so forth. 500 is equipment. And again, this is only in the 100 fund. So our capital improvement, obviously, that equipment would be much, much higher there.
Same as in CTE, for example.
Yes, yeah.
Boy,
Insurance.
Travel has sure jumped.
Oh, yes, yes, yep, that is, yes, and we could talk about that, because.
What line is that?
385.
385.
381.
If you look.
I guess mostly 385, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yep, that jumped tremendously,
230.
yeah. And that's, what helps offset that is, what do we call that? Participation fee. So a lot of the participation fee that the student athletes pay the high schools,
Line 340.
we receive. And if you go back to the beginning of the revenue page, you'll notice in fiscal 23, it's 0 for revenue. Well, we let the schools keep that. Again, it was a lower amount, and we thought the schools could take that. And this current year, it was half. They kept half and they sent half. But unfortunately, this next year, with the high costs, we're going back to what it was in fiscal year 22 and earlier, that they will send all of that too. And that helps with not only travel, but coaches and so forth.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, excellent. And again, if you have any questions now or even, going forward, please come visit or send an email, text, or so forth. I will say, what I found out, our insurance is going up even more than we kind of thought a little bit, so that'll be an adjustment.
Health insurance or property insurance?
Property.
Or property insurance, okay.
Yeah, met with him.
Or liability.
too.
Yeah, exactly, those first 3.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, there it is.
The property liability and transportation.
A lot of people aren't too happy with us
That is correct.
about
That's
that.
correct. And so, but he
700,
our insurance agent was very nice, and
11, 12.
he said it wasn't all because of Highland, but looking at the numbers, obviously it was a little bit there. So, and then there at the bottom, again, transfers to other funds. Those funds that need it, that we supply that from the 100 fund. Contingency reserve, 1%, and that that percent parenthesis is just for our conversations. It's not on a title of the account. But 1% of revenues is contingency. Unappropriated is 4% of revenues. And then that last one is, that's the one, the amount that kind of balances us and makes it all balanced there. So, again, that's kind of gives us a little bit of the cushion there to handle anything that will happen in the new year.
And what is the percentage? I know there's a recommended that we have in our reserves.
So-
Is it recommended?
So it's really not a percentage, but it's at least, they recommend at least 2 to 3 months worth of expenditures. And I can get you that.
Okay, yeah, I can ask you that later.
Yep, and that's, I mean, the comfort level is right there in that, Dr. Hall and I have that conversation many times of what our comfort level is there. But it is, unfortunately, just with prices going up, it is going up further. So anywhere between the 9, closer to 10 million, 11 million that's where our comfort level is. But again, with the costs going up, we like to have some there. So again, this is just the first blush draft. It will change. We'll talk again. My goal is to try to get you some of the other funds, the special ed, we'll talk ESSER, as we're about done with ESSER. We'll talk about SIP, 420 fund, because we've now had a lot of bids. And you approved that in December. Well, I want you to kind of see how that impacts. Not having the lottery money, how that impacts. So we'll have a couple different scenarios there. And so we'll discuss this and others next board meeting as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have the 10-year district facilities plan discussion. Also by Jonathan.
Okay, sorry, sorry, I wish I was better looking, then you would have to see me. I'm sorry. But we can do this as quick or as much as you'd like. So again, to get some of the dollars from our House Bill 521, we have to update and have a 10-year facilities plan. The state's gonna be more involved in that process. They're gonna set some requirements and some parameters. And we feel very comfortable that we'll be able to meet those. The meat part of this plan would be basically your priorities for the next 10 years. And so just looking and, talking to Dr. Howell, talking to Cabinet, kind of what these might look like. And so we made a list of potential projects. In no priority order, but of course I did put Highland up there first because we know that's gonna be there. But just wanted your feedback, and again, you'll be able to review the draft hopefully at least 2 times of the full plan, where these will be flushed out a little bit more, but wanted to start that conversation of what you see the district in the way of facility needs for the next 10 years.
Where did this list come from? Was this?
So part of it came from SIP.
Okay.
We talked about Lincoln a little bit. Obviously, last fall we were talking about the Century Gymnasium expansion. It was talking with our Brian, our plant facility coordinator, kind of areas of concern that he has, and that would be probably the roofing. That's we're doing. That isn't part of our SIP and our maintenance. It's just the roofs are 20 to 30 years, and then you start with leaks, and then
It is or it's not?
It is,
okay.
but that's.
Yeah, we have a list of those, right?
And we do.
We already have that.
It's just, we're feeling the sense, and especially Brian, that we need to accelerate that a little bit. And so just because it just goes by so fast, with all of our, 27 buildings.
Yeah, because we had bids on.
Correct. And so we're doing some of them are in great shape. Some of them just need to, we're kind of patching there. So, and roofing is very expensive, so.
Now, on this list, can we wait until we know what the template is from the state?
Absolutely.
Okay, everybody can weigh in, but that's kind of what I would like to do, is wait till we know what the template is.
So-
Because we might spend 30 minutes talking about this, and it won't match up with what the state's requiring us to do, and I'd rather just wait till we know what
And you're
is
right,
being
I'm
asked
making
of
the
us.
assumption that the state will definitely want our list of projects, no matter what the template
So
looks like.
maybe if,
So I just didn't know, would you like, okay, you would like to add one, or is there one on your list, or no, something we don't need to consider? So that's all.
I see.
And that's just, I don't want to force it on you, it's just,
No,
I'm pretty sure,
fine.
of all the whole plan, this was the one thing I was constant, okay, I'm pretty sure they're gonna want to know our projects.
Right. I don't
What
think
we're
we need
gonna
to get in
do.
the weeds on it, but
You
if
know,
there's
how are we
something on
gonna-
this list that we're
How are we gonna
missing.
spend, $43 million? Well, we know a lot, just because of what we have to do at Highland, but, what is the other money?
I mean, these are great considerations. I don't,
Okay, any comment? That's all it was just draft.
Get you thinking a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, that's all.
Yep.
Because, the timeline, it'll be probably in June, the June board meeting that
okay.
will.
My fear is they're gonna come back and say, okay, here's the money, you've gotta spread it between all of your projects. And
No, we
We're-
won't, because that's not the purpose of it.
And I appreciate your fear. I've had several of those myself, but I'm looking
They
glass
specifically asked us not to.
glass, half full, that we'll be able to spend it where our needs, where the board directs us,
Okay,
Okay.
I mean, it's a legitimate
are we
concern that
ready
we're
to,
using the whole thing for one project, which, no fault of our own, I mean, that's kind of what we have
Correct.
to do, but it, yeah.
And like I said, and there will be some leftover there, and that's what, kind of the budget there, that we need to, have some other
yeah, when
considerations.
you're talking about a facility, I think the same with any district, it's such a big expense that isn't going to pay for more than one facility.
Right.
And every district, I think, would have to choose what is their priority. Obviously, we know what our priority is.
Sure.
So
yeah.
it will be different for every district.
Sure. And then I know what for sure they'll
Have
want
a
is to
house
look
figured
out, 10 years to see, and hopefully we'll get some more facility
Yeah.
money.
I mean, we are not homeless in any other area in our district.
Sure, there's improvements that could be made, and so, just things to
Absolutely.
start thinking about.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are you ready to?
Well, I think yes, I'm ready if you're ready to.
Okay, so Tanya and Jonathan will
Set.
present the restroom safety solution discussion. Know that Tanya had some ideas. I guess you can say why we're discussing this. Or I can.
For safety, I know as administrators and the school resource officers, their biggest concern is restrooms. Sorry, I just put a flavor in my mouth and I shouldn't have. But anyway, we just want some guidelines, I think, as we move through this process, to what should be our priorities. We talked a lot about having cameras in the bathrooms or for the majority of the restroom. Do we need to have, ceiling to wall stalls, or do we leave a little space for the venting? Because the price would increase if we did ceiling to wall.
Floor
And
to
as
ceiling?
ceiling to wall.
I-
Ceiling to
I
floor,
wrote it down.
ceiling,
Yeah,
floor to
ceiling,
ceiling.
floor. Thank you.
So we're navigating through all these things, and I'm actually going to visit Pocatello Community Charter School, who recently had done this upgrade to the restrooms, and they said it drastically decreased the incidents that were happening in the restroom.
Can I go with you? I wanted to see that
You bet.
also.
I'm going
Okay.
Thursday morning at 9:30.
Okay.
And we're really looking at Highland being kind of the
Yeah, I can't go there.
first step, because we're building these restrooms. But we have to keep in mind as we remodel other school restrooms that we have the pricing behind it, right?
This goes on that list.
Correct, and that's the
I
type
think
of
this
things we
is
need.
more of a rolling thing.
Because it's
that-
in SIP projects, we do have
Right.
upgrades to
We
restrooms.
do that
And so
already.
as we do that, let's try to remodel them to best practices. Like what we saw at Pocatello High School, having the sink out in the hallway made a huge significant difference. And they just didn't have doors on the restrooms, and those helped, So basically, what is our top priorities? And we're still navigating through that. But I know that it is a a top priority for our administrators and school resource officers for safety reasons.
So there are no doors on the restrooms in Pokey?
In the new section,
No. So
we
that-
have the sink on the outside, so there's no sinks inside the restroom.
Okay.
There, it's in the hallway. So as you come out of the restroom, that's where they wash their hands, and it
Oh, so there's
decreased
no
the ban.
door on the entrance,
On
but
the
there are
entrance
doors
and
on
the-
the stalls?
Stalls, correct.
Okay, that's what I
Doors
was
on the
thinking.
stalls. Oh, yeah, for sure.
No wonder kids aren't using that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the reason that,
We need to have the same vision, because I'm
Yes,
not
we
sure
do.
what you're.
It's like,
yeah.
okay.
We've actually taken doors off of the entrance into the restrooms
Okay.
that have stalls.
That makes so
Does
much
that make
more
sense?
sense.
Because of, listening and any time that you have a dead spot in camera zones, kids
Yeah,
find
they'll
out,
take
right?
advantage of
And so we're trying to eliminate that. We do have concern on the opposite end of, just enclosure and being a confined room and so forth, making sure that that's safe. So we want to think about everything as we navigate through, and I asked the builder to give us some examples, and he did give us some examples, and we started the conversation.
So, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The reason I wanted to talk about this is because of the complaints, many, from students and parents. So I know it's coming from administration and resource as well, but what I hear is from students and parents, and it is
Right.
a lot.
Right.
It's not a small thing, and that's why I thought maybe it would be something that we could talk about and maybe look at some of the designs that you have, and maybe what I was thinking with this is looking at restrooms starting at the high school level.
Correct.
Only the
agree.
high school to start with.
Yep.
And just looking to see if there are some small changes that we can make to make it safer.
I agree,
the
and I
short
think we got to look at the SIP rotation plan. I
Correct.
think Hawthorne had it on the list a couple years ago. We talked about this, and it got tabled for a moment. But I think we have a great opportunity at Highland to try to think big, and also keep in mind, we need to replicate, and so whatever we do, that cost will be replicated. So let's be conservative but mindful to try to make it as safe as possible.
Yeah, and to make it
Yeah.
the least amount of cost and least amount of change possible
Right.
with making it safer.
And that's the double, again, compared to my lucky coin here, again, we want safe, but we also need the privacy.
Yes, we can't
And that's,
sacrifice
and there
the
has to be a
privacy.
balance there. I will mention, I think we've talked to the board about our vape grant.
Oh, I wanted an
Vape
update on the
detectors.
vape detectors.
Yeah.
That was another thing that a parent asked,
Okay, so.
What about it?
the vape detectors, because I know we had a safety grant.
Yeah,
right?
we were awarded the 90,000 plus
Correct.
to put vape detectors in each of the high schools. We're gonna put them in each of the restrooms and the locker rooms. And then in
Is that
that,
this summer?
Yes, so
And
we've
we're-
actually
That's what I
received,
was wondering.
part of the grant was to have it contracted out, to
yeah,
have
so
that done this
we
summer.
received the
Great.
detectors, and so I just was working on getting that reimbursed. It's one of those that we have to pay, submit the invoices, and then they'll reimburse us for that.
Oh,
And I
And then-
assume
Great.
they're mobile, so then when these renovations happen, you can just,
Yeah, yes, we can
relocate
implement
them.
those.
They are tied to the ether, they're tied
Oh.
with internet, so it's,
But
they're.
as it's built, is that what you're talking about in Highland?
well, I'm just saying that, you put them in the bathrooms today and then you start remodeling the bathrooms, are
Oh,
they?
yeah, you're correct.
We just have to
Repurposable.
rewire.
Yeah,
Okay,
rewire,
that's
that's,
what I was-
that's.
And part of that renovation would be making sure, but part of the detectors that we chose was also sound. So if there's a significant sound, we had vandalism going on pretty.
Oh, that's good. Oh, I didn't know
So
about the sound. That's great.
So, and I can have a little, again, talking with Brian, I appreciate him giving these numbers. So he pulled the report, and this is of course, ballpark numbers, but you see the magnitude, since January, we've had about $16,000 worth of vandalism in our high school bathrooms. And so to me, that's kind of the safety,
I know that
Is
both
that-
of you had mentioned that you hadn't really heard much about it, or I guess Heather had mentioned that she
Correct.
hadn't really heard much about it. I guess that is due to the fact that if you don't have somebody at a high school, going to high school right now, it's probably not something that you hear
Sure,
about. But if you do, you hear about it.
Correct.
Well, I know last year,
It is
it was in the news quite a
huge.
bit.
It was in the news, it
It
was
was
a
a TikTok challenge that,
Yep.
that
Yeah.
That
started.
way, and
the-
that's a kind of a different thing than what's going on now. It's just, it's an ongoing. It's not.
Well, I think it started there. You're absolutely right.
Correct.
And that's where we're implementing the social media pros and cons, trying to get that information out to parents too. There's just a lot of avenues that we are gonna go down that we are not even aware of yet.
Is there still the litter box issues?
So the litter box all started from a school in the Midwest that had a litter box in their classroom because of, if they were in a lockdown, they would be able to use that as an emergency restroom type thing. And that morphed into all of these,
Other.
fake news, I don't know what you want to call it,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
to say litter boxes are in school. We've never had a litter box in our school.
Oh,
We've never used a litter box, even in our safety. We have a bucket, and we have safety items in that bucket if we were in a lockdown situation. So like granola bars, water, things like that we implemented 10 years ago, a long time ago. We have never had litter in our bathrooms or
I guess
Yeah,
I
what-
thought it was
but
that
that's where it
students
stemmed
were
from.
bringing it.
Yeah,
and
what I-
staff- No,
Yeah,
okay.
what I was referring to is, the kids that are identifying as furries. And, because my daughter walked in and somebody was relieving themselves on the bathroom floor outside of a stall because, when they have that identity as, a furry, that's what they do. And they also in hallways.
This is really new news to me, so I
Oh,
have
okay,
not
sorry.
even heard
We'll
any of
talk
this
in
going
private.
on. So
I'm
this is
so sorry.
this
I
is
thought
definitely
this
a
was very
behavior
common
and
knowledge.
discipline issue that
And
I
I
would be
guess
facing.
I
and
guess I
have
know
never
it
heard
because,
that.
I know the kids
Yeah.
there. And so they,
That's
They know
inappropriate. So we
that.
need to be
Yeah.
talking to them. But there is no litter and litter boxes in the
Yeah, we're not
restrooms or
condoning
classrooms.
that.
But
And
this
nor
is
is it
part
allowed.
of
We weren't producing.
This is
I knew
part of
we
just-
weren't,
Yeah.
or I knew you
Right.
weren't providing it. I was.
right.
this is
no,
what I
it's
heard.
really more in the category of us.
The student was.
This
So-
sounds
a
like a
solution
behavior,
n-
yes, that
needed.
we need to address. Yes,
Right. So,
I agree.
yes.
So I guess, and I know, we do have, and there, we could pull it up, any design for a bathroom. I guess the main points that kind of where we wanted this as a verbal is, okay, board, do you want cameras in your bathroom? Do you want, and we're gonna make these decisions for Highland fairly soon in the next 2 or 3 months. And so, again, that'll be kind of the pattern of what we'll do do you want cameras? Okay, if we have ceiling to floor stalls, is it okay to have cameras in there?
Floor
Not
ceiling.
in the stall.
Not in the stalls.
Not in the
Correct,
stall.
correct,
Right,
correct.
Be very
Just-
clear about that.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry.
And so
yeah.
when talking to the builder, I mean,
So-
he felt like we could do a few inches at the top and so forth, so the venting system, and, still have
paying
a
for new
pretty secure
venting.
privacy, but we really gotta think through what all of that looks like. And do we want the sinks in the hallways? I mean, those are things that if we just know ahead of time, then we can start looking at the best fits as the schools get remodeled and so on.
Yeah, I was hoping maybe we can look at those maybe throughout the month, or, the ideas that you had or that the builder had sent you, and we can maybe, and then visit the 3 high schools. And for that purpose, to say, what can we do with these bathrooms? What could we do with these this summer? I was hoping we could do that, right?
That's a
fairly-
big undertaking, I think, with everything else that was on our SIP, and that would have had to have been on SIP prior to that.
Not to do.
Oh,
that.
just like come
Some
up with a
people-
plan?
Yeah, just
the design.
only for a
Absolutely.
plan. Only
And
for
that's
a
what
plan.
we were trying to go, like, I'm gonna go visit Pocatello Community Charter School. We were looking for opportunities, and that's why we asked the builder to bring some designs, because we're not sure, where we're gonna be at and what we need to do, because some restrooms really will be conducive to what we want, and some will be really hard.
And again, I know we love our contractor, but again, that was from a different architect, firm. And so I think we also, allow our Design West to give us, okay, here's how we've designed bathrooms. Because again, they should have the experience of everything under the sun there that should be able to, and we'll, give that to the board.
And I think we need to make sure this is as economical as
Sure.
possible. Like, we can't build walls all over the place. I mean, but the floor to ceiling dividers, with allowing for venting, of course, I think is probably more economical.
First steps.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And then, again, I guess the question is we maybe need to look more into the camera in the bathroom. If with that floor to ceiling dividers.
So are
can
you
we-
actually asking us?
To think about it.
I would
because
say,
we will
I would
probably
say, I would
look
say
at
that's not a consideration for me, but everybody else.
And again, it
you
was
guys
more
weigh
just
in.
a solution, more as
Conversation, yeah.
I
conversation,
am
because it will come up.
100% good with a camera right outside the bathroom so that we can track who has come in and who has come out with the timestamp to match it
And
up
we have
with
that now.
what
We do
has
have that
happened.
now.
Yeah, we have that now.
Because that's a really important, those kids that have done something in the bathroom, vandalism,
It's
they
more of
have
a ch-
got
it's
to
more
be
of a
held
challenge,
accountable.
yeah.
So here's the challenge, when you have exchange a classroom, you have multiple kids going in and coming out. And so that's where
And
it
now, I
becomes
thought it
very
was
difficult.
more happening in between, during classes, when they'd go,
It's all the time.
okay.
And that's where, if you don't have somebody going into every single one of those restrooms before class and after class, and then it's hard to detect when that time stamp would be, that we'd be looking.
Yeah? Yeah, I can see that.
So there's lots of things to battle, but
Yeah.
we would love to just continue to look down that
Sure.
road
And that's,
and bring it to you at a later date of some
and the-
options.
yeah, and it's both, it is both supervision and, but it's, you know, we're employing a very expensive bathroom monitors,
Yeah.
currently, and so can the camera help deter that a little bit? And
Yeah,
so
so
that's the,
Maybe if we can really just have this
Pros
for
and
this
cons.
summer, and
Yep.
maybe start to come up with a plan this summer
Yep.
to give everybody a little bit of hope, give the kids that, the kids that don't want to go to the bathroom ever at school, give them a little bit of hope that we're doing something.
Correct,
We're actually coming up with a plan, recognizing the problem, and working towards solution. And I know some schools used their ESSER money and just retrofitted bathrooms. We didn't do that, but we can, going forward, we can make a plan to do things going forward to make everybody safe, feel safe.
So it's definitely part of our conversation. And so
And
we'll be,
the vape detectors update is really awesome.
Yeah.
yeah.
Really
And-
good news.
And that might,
Help.
the high school that already has some of these, they're the lowest amount of occurrence that happens there, so.
And maybe a lot of
so-
occurrences will go down, which is,
that's why we're hoping like the minimal amount of impact, if we can think of
Absolutely.
some things that would really impact with just doing some small upgrades.
yeah,
So that's what
maybe
we look
if there are any other safety grants, that would be amazing.
That's true. We'll always
It's
look for
definitely a
those.
safety issue.
Yes. And because we were awarded the high school vape detector grants, we will be first in line to get middle school as well
Oh, that's great.
on phase 2.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. I've thought a lot about the designs that we looked at, and I really want to talk to you more about that, because I've thought more about it, and I think there's some really good ideas.
Okay.
So thank you.
So yeah, if you want to go Thursday morning.
Okay, I'll talk to you about it.
Okay.
Because I can't go Thursday morning. So I'll talk to you about it later.
Is that on, any more questions?
Next on the agenda is a public written comment, and the written comment is included. And we haven't received any requests for public comment that I am aware of. And, let's see, what do we have next? So that concludes our work session point, a work session portion of the meeting, and I'll now convene a special meeting for action. The first item of business is to review the potential trustee candidate interview questions and possible selection criteria. How should we do this? Well, Ray, are you prepared with questions that you want? I see that
Yeah, I mean,
you have some out, or,
Yeah, sure.
okay, all
Yeah,
right,
sure.
maybe you can start.
No, I looked at all the suggestions from the Teachers Union and the ISBA and from the district. And, they're all excellent questions. The model interview questions, there were 7 of them, and so I kind of picked 7 from all those that I sort of liked. So, you want me just to enumerate them? or what?
I think it would be great.
Okay, So the first one I have here is, why are you interested in serving on the school board? And are you aware that the appointment term for this seat goes through December 31, 2025? And so I think that's a pretty basic question. We'd like to know why they're interested and realize they have a 1-year, 8-month commitment approximately. The next one I selected are, board members contribute many hours of service monthly to meet the demands of board work. Are you flexible to be available daytime and evening time according to the needs of the district? And so as a new member, you can watch meetings, you can attend meetings, you can look at schedules, but you're not really aware that a lot of things come up. Disciplinary meetings are coming up, and all kinds of other contingencies like Highland High School and the PV Tech. We had 5 applications. Well, last week, I guess, we had 3, and then 2 more I saw on
I think there's
Monday.
8 total.
Yeah, so, yeah, but I mean, just this last week. And that was my point, is that apparently 2 of them were kind of like 11th hour.
Yeah.
So in other words,
glad that we
maybe
have that
they came in the
additional time.
email and you didn't notice them until Monday.
Yeah.
And so I think it's wonderful that we have all these very qualified people who are willing to serve. But I think especially if they're submitting the last week or the last, literally the 11th hour, they might not realize
Except
what
that's
kind
what
of
I
commitment
did.
they have, especially if
I
they're,
think that could be intentional though too, just saying.
what's that?
I think that's also I think that's intentional.
You mean
Wait
the-
to the last minute.
Oh,
I mean, that's
well,
what I did.
It could be.
it could be,
I was
or
gonna say,
people people are mulling things over, and
You
Yeah,
gotta wait
I will
till-
note that one of the people that did submit at the last minute had asked way in the beginning, like
Yeah.
almost right at the beginning of the process,
Okay.
what they needed to do.
I wouldn't
so.
read too much into it.
Oh,
is all-
okay.
Is all I'm saying.
No, yeah, no,
Anyway, go
a point well
Yeah,
taken.
yeah.
But, you know, I mean, if they're working, et cetera, and, you know, because we do meet in the daytime, and
Mm-hmm.
and now here we were supposed to be done at 5:30, and it's 5:42, and we still have quite a few items to cover.
Yeah.
So, of course, I mean, I think that's an important question. Do they realize what kind of commitment? The next, number 3, what qualities and behaviors should board members exhibit? And I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Number 4, I have, what kind of a relationship should the school board have with its parents and families? Number 5, why are school boards necessary? I think that's a really good question. You know, people should really, I'd really like to hear what they have to say about that. What are the current, next one, what are the current challenges facing education and school boards? And, you know, as a new school board member, I'm really coming up to speed with, you know, the great number of changes we have in society and economically, et cetera. I know I've been visiting a lot of elementary schools here lately, thanks to AJ. He's facilitated a lot of visits. And there are a lot of really challenges that are current that a lot of people may not realize that are going on, and a lot of, you know, a lot of.
So read me your question again. What was?
What are the current challenges facing education and school boards?
So I guess what I would add on to that is their opinion. You know, it's one for them to identify them, but then I would be curious to know, and where am I trying to go with this? But, you know, there are some issues that keep getting brought before school boards across the country. I would like to know their position on some of them.
That kind of ties in with my next question.
Yeah, the hot, you know, vouchers, or flags, or, I mean, some of those
Yeah,
things.
sure.
My big, well, I appreciate, and I think those are all some excellent questions. I want to make sure we have someone that's getting on the board for the right reasons.
Uh-huh.
You know, not because they're trying to jump on the national bandwagon of how can we get the gotchas in the schools.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how we ask that question, quite frankly.
Well, how about my 7th question? Because
Yeah,
that kind
let's
of ties
go.
in.
Yeah, keep going.
And so what are some major issues that you believe our school district is currently facing? How would you like the district to deal with those issues?
Perfect.
I think that's a great.
I think that's a great one.
So I thought, you know, the number 6 would be just in generality, to say that, you know, to show that people maybe have an understanding of what's going on economically and culturally and with families. But then the last one addresses, I think, your concern. And I think we all want to know about
Yeah,
that.
and I guess we would disagree on if one reason is is a good reason or if it's not,
Well-
based on,
Yeah, well, that's the nice thing about open-ended questions, you know.
I like.
We're going to
Right,
hear
we'll
what
get
what they
their
have to
feedback.
say. We're not going to prompt anything.
But just to clarify, I'm not agreeing to only ask the questions that we are talking about today.
Mhm.
Much like discipline hearings, we don't know what we're going to hear.
No, I agree with you completely.
And if I have another question I want to ask based on something that somebody says, I'm not going to agree that I can't ask that question.
Yeah, and
So
I
just
think-
Just as an aside, I think it's really important. I love those questions. I think it would be really good if we organize ourselves and maybe decide who wants to begin with the questions that we for sure want covered.
Mhm.
And maybe assign, if you want, maybe each board member to ask one or two of those. And then after, but follow-up questions are
And I
completely
do
fine.
think we need to have some restrictions on that though too. We can't, because otherwise with 8 candidates, we could be going for hours. I think we need to limit the number of additional, and I'm not suggesting you shouldn't ask, but I think we could go off topic pretty quickly. And so I think we do need to have,
I trust you guys.
Should we maybe set a time limit for each candidate,
yeah.
other than say, well,
I
we
mean,
can't?
at least try to. I think we can, because it could be very easy to go off on tangents, and I think we need to
Well, I think
at
it
least
would,
all agree that that should not happen.
I think we should have an opportunity to do follow-up questions based
Yeah, of
upon
course.
what people say.
Yes, because maybe one of the questions that I would like is, do you have any kids in the district and what are their grades? What grades are they in? To know, what's the situation and what perspective they're bringing. So that's a question I would like, is what do you have children or grandchildren in the district and their ages and the schools that they would?
So I've got a question then. I mean, so if we're going to decide these are questions we're going to ask each applicant, then they're going to be published, right? Okay, so then in effect, they're going to be,
They'll know ahead of time.
They'll know ahead of time.
They're doing their homework.
Yeah, I think there's, I think though there's perhaps
I
some
guess I
benefit
would
to having the
have a
fact that not
question.
every question is known ahead of time.
No.
Because I've never gone to a job interview where I knew all any of the questions they were
No.
going to ask me.
This is,
And so
No,
for
that
them to
would-
know every question ahead of time.
Right.
They can,
so here's just a general, maybe this is more of a Renee Doug kind of question. So when you've done this in the past, and maybe this is the discussion after the interviews, but I guess I would envision that each of us have a priority of what we're looking for. Deanna, obviously, having children in the district, some of them do, some of them.
Well, I don't know that that's
Is
my
that-
priority.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. is Do we need to
I'm not
know that
stating
ahead of
that.
time, or is that a post?
No, we're talking about interview questions.
No, I know that. but
I think
that's
that
what I'm
comes with your
asking.
discussion. This is what was important to me. This is what I
Okay.
heard that candidate say.
Yeah, I just
That's
suggested
why
that as
I
a
would select
question.
them as my
Okay.
number
Mhm.
one. or
And I
two.
think that once we get the questions, at least the set ones that you guys determined that you definitely want to ask for sure,
Mhm.
that we would have like a portion of, doesn't meet or meets or exceeds,
Okay,
your
yeah.
expectations in each one
Like
of
a
those
rubric?
categories, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be great, yeah.
Yeah, it'll help with this, I guess if we need to do some scoring, it'll help.
I
With 8
think we can do, we can do a private ballot.
We
I don't
actually
think so,
cannot.
you can't.
No, it's illegal in the state of Idaho. I think.
It's gotta
Well,
be
not
split.
according to Robert's rules, but okay.
Yes, Robert's rules though doesn't cover Idaho open meeting.
Oh,
so
okay,
that's
that's fine,
yeah.
that's fine. I don't know that we need a scoring, but we can have it if
Right.
we want it, but yeah.
I think it's just
It might
helpful
be
for you
helpful.
to keep track of,
Uh-huh,
if you don't
yeah.
want to. you
For,
absolutely
yeah,
don't
oh,
have to.
certainly, yeah, I think it would be helpful to me for taking notes and
Mhm.
things, so, yeah, I think that's a good one. I just would not want anybody to have a number assigned to them.
Have a what?
a number.
A number
It's not
assigned
uncommon.
to them.
It's,
So I don't want to do that. But I mean, if you guys want to share that.
There's one more question that I thought and maybe I wasn't paying good enough attention, but I'll just read it real quick. It says, does the candidate seem capable of setting aside personal or single issues, agendas, and work cooperative with greater good of the?
I wanted that one too. I really
think that would
like
be a
that.
good one to ask.
But is that the question you ask them, or is that the question we discuss about them after the fact?
I was thinking that based upon these basic 7 questions and other supplemental questions,
Absolutely.
we can get a pretty good idea.
Right, right.
Mhm.
You'll
You know,
get
and then we
that.
can discuss
I
that.
would like to actually ask them, because I want them to actually know that you can't have personal, I mean, you should not have personal agendas. When you do have priorities, and that, there's nothing wrong with having priorities or some goals, there's nothing wrong with that. And certainly you need to have opinions about things, but the question, I just like that question, Jim. I would definitely like that question.
Well, we gotta be able to, I mean, you gotta be able to set aside your personal so that we can all come together on,
Yeah.
I mean, if I get dead set on what I wanna do, and, I mean, maybe I'm the only one, so I get voted out anyway, but.
Well, that happens to me all the time, so you've never had that happen to you, so I can tell you all about that. So, but yeah, I mean, getting outvoted, I don't have a problem with that. You know, if we've all had a chance to share our thoughts, anyway, that's not
I
what we're
think
talking
you're
about.
starting to answer your own question.
We're
now.
not talking
So
about
maybe
that right now.
you should-
But
Yeah.
I
So
do
is that
want.
a question we wanna put on there,
Yeah.
or is that something we wanna?
I like it. I like it. One other question I like is, what's your perception of the current working and learning climate in the school district? And do you have any ideas of how to ensure, what I would like, instead of that second part of that question, what I would like is that question, then also, do you, a question about, our, improvement, our improvement goals, and ask about that. If they've looked at them, you know, our, what are they called? Renee, the, not capital improvement.
The continuous.
Continuous, I couldn't think of the word. Our continuous improvement plan for, that's the whole reason that we're here, is for the education of the kids. And if they have taken a look at that, I would like to know their thoughts on what our continuous improvement plan is and what are their thoughts on that. Because I had thoughts on that. You know, I mean, I definitely read through it and I had thoughts on that. How can we, is there anything we can do to improve academic performance?
I guess that's what I would make it more general than the specific plan.
I would like them
If
to
they
have
have
looked at our
ideas.
capital. I would like them to have looked at our continuous improvement plan.
Okay, are you paying attention?
Yeah.
You need to be.
Right?
I
Yeah,
would like
again,
that, because
I
if
think just
they
maybe-
want to be on the board,
Don't
that's
try
like-
to explain maybe your reason for the question, because I think you're starting to answer the question.
No, yeah, keep
And
the
then
questions
your
open-ended.
philosophies and
Okay, well, I'm
ideologies-
not the only one.
Then you won't get real answers,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, so you could just maybe say, I like that.
I just, yeah, yep.
Yep, there you go.
Other than that, I just base it on whatever I hear.
There you go, yeah.
I think what Ray has proposed, I like those are, they touch on all the bases and then it leads into additional follow-up questions. My only comment is that we need to keep a time limit, we need to not go off on tangents.
I agree.
I think, you know, I mean, we just have to.
Well, I mean,
We're
just
gonna be here all
to,
day
just
long.
because, just to be fair, you have to give everybody the
Right.
same amount of time.
And that's the other thing, is that you can't, whatever question you do ask, you've gotta be asking the same questions to every candidate. Yeah, I mean, that's a
It
standard
doesn't
job
really
interview.
apply, it doesn't
Well, but
apply
it's
to
a
everybody.
standard
What-
job interview
Some of them have a
situation.
different background in their education and their experience, which I want to ask about.
And that's the
I
question.
know
Yeah, that's a good
something
point.
on your
Right.
thing,
So you have
and I
to
want
ask
to ask
that
about
of
that.
everyone. You'd have to ask that
That
kind
wouldn't
of a
apply
question
to
to
someone
everyone.
else, their work experience. You know, something, because I did want to ask somebody about something they put on their CV, and that just doesn't apply to anybody else.
Well, but you would ask about their experience.
It's about them personally.
Right,
you
you're
know.
asking about their experience, and that's what comes
So-
off of their resume. But
Yeah,
all
so
of
the
that
follow-up
has to be
questions.
asked by everybody.
So the follow-up questions are,
Well, the
ask
follow,
follow-up
yeah, they're gonna be individualized
yes, they will be.
by definition, yeah.
Yeah, certainly.
Oh, I'm okay with those questions.
Yeah, I like the one
We have
that
to,
you
so
said
then do we
as well.
vote on those questions? Is that
I
what
think that's the
next
way
step is?
Renee had it set up.
If you like, I can just. give you that.
Do you have enough? do you think, Renee? Is that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
that's plenty. I think that's great. I do think that one other thing that I would like to go over is just the style of the interview process. I didn't really put action on that. But as far as like how much time you'd like to allot for each candidate, are we doing individual interviews first? Are we doing a panel interview? How do we want to set this up?
Whoa,
oh,
I never
one other
considered
question.
Panel
that.
interview,
What
where
other
everyone
They're all
is
sitting
here?
right there and you ask the question.
Wait, before we move to that, I do want to ask one other question, and that is, I do want to know, did somebody ask you? Did somebody ask you to apply for this position, or was it just something you wanted to do? Because
Okay.
I have had 2 people come to me saying that they have been asked.
Yeah, definitely. I think that
Not
that's,
come to me, it was actually, I kind of roundabout, like, so I just think it would be really good to know, you know?
No, I think that's a good question.
Where are you coming from? What's the background of kind of, it goes
What
along
was
with that.
their-
What's
is
your
that the reason? for applying?
motivation?
Won't that be their why, though, of why?
It could be, so maybe we can
The
add
why
it
are
on
you
to that.
interested in serving?
Why
Is
are
that-
you, and did somebody
Did somebody
ask
recruit
you?
or ask you to apply?
You know,
Yeah,
as
I
far as,
think it's a good
as far as the
follow-up.
format, I never even considered asking everyone at once. I thought we'd do individually.
Well, so I guess the
Do you like
first
that
question
idea?
needs to be,
No,
are
I
we
don't.
having all
Okay.
8 first? Are we having all 8 candidates? Is there anyone that we do not want to interview? Or are
Right,
we-
and that was definitely the other thing too,
Yeah.
is it, did we?
It seems like we need to
did you-
figure that out
We put that
first.
option in there if we were gonna screen anybody out, but if you do, I really think that you need to talk about the reasons why.
Yeah.
I don't think
have
we
any-
should.
No, I don't want to screen anybody
I
out.
think
I
all
think,
8
I
of
think if
them-
these people are willing to serve, then they deserve to be interviewed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're all going to bring assets to the school
Yeah,
board, and I think
absolutely.
everybody there is a good applicant. But I didn't imagine you would have everybody, all 8 here, and you're asking
Right.
the same question, because that's kind of like, what one person answers, the next one's going to modify
Not
their
a
answer.
beauty pageant.
Yeah, I would like to have them individual, because that way we're getting a unique response from.
But that's how I got, when my
Oh,
very
really?
first got on, was we sat right there in the board
two of you?
asking,
Wow.
yeah.
You
I didn't even
Well,
consider that.
2 is a little less
Believe me,
complicated
I
than
was
8.
way intimidated
Two
too.
is
Yeah,
different
2
than
is
8, though.
different than
yeah.
8.
The person I was going in had a doctorate degree, and I was going,
Oh,
No,
so
I
you
would-
didn't ever, it wasn't a one-on-one, or a board on,
it was us 2 candidates in the board asking us questions.
no kidding.
And they would ask me the question, and then they'd ask her, and then they'd ask her, and then they'd ask me. So each time they
Oh,
asked
so
it-
you alternated.
Alternated the first
Well, with
one.
8 people,
Yeah.
I just think, it's kind of almost
got
like,
8
if you're
questions.
number 8, everybody else has already answered. And so what can you say that's different? And your answer is going to be modified by what other people have said.
Sure.
I would just like to have them individually, open-ended questions, and that way, we're going to get a unique response.
Yeah,
I agree.
certainly.
It's very uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Was
and
for
then
me anyway.
that would be
You
my
don't think
next
this
thing
is
is,
intimidating
do
enough?
we think that like maybe like 15 to 20 minutes per candidate is enough and just kind of space them
Ooh,
out for
wow.
all of
I,
Monday?
I don't think so.
What are we
I
thinking?
mean,
I don't
you
think
want
we ought to go more than
longer
a
or
half hour.
shorter?
I think 30 minutes is plenty.
I think 30.
Oh, I
minutes.
30
think
minutes
it's-
per candidate?
I think that's
the
a
whole
lot.
day. Or is everybody available to dedicate Monday to interviews?
30, that's only 4 hours.
I
Well,
think
well,
30 minutes is
it's only
too
4
long.
hours.
but
Well, I mean, if we don't have any breaks.
What do we guys want to do?
Well, it might not take 30.
We'll
Stop
call
in
for
between.
breaks if we want to do that.
Well, why don't we
If you
set-
guys want to do that, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'd rather have.
Do
a
4,
meeting.
take a break, do 4.
Oh, that's
Okay.
8.
I'll work
Oh,
on the
that's
schedule
only
then
4 hours.
for Monday.
You started
30
at noon,
minutes.
because I do have a meeting Monday morning. So when you
Okay.
sent out that appointment for noon, that was fine.
As long as that,
I
works for
I
them.
don't usually, I can. I'll have to talk to my daughter if I can even come on Monday.
Well,
Because
here,
that's the day that I
That's the
can't
day
come.
you guys picked for interviews, remember?
yeah. that
Yeah,
was-
we did, didn't we?
Uh-huh.
I'll
Yeah.
talk to her about it.
Okay.
Well,
I was
here's the
gonna say
thing,
that-
though.
that all
Yeah.
of you need to be there for sure.
well,
Yeah,
I think,
Yeah,
again, if it's going to be
Yeah,
this
I'll
long,
make it work.
and we have 8 candidates, maybe we should ask them when is convening for them to show up, and so, people aren't sitting here waiting, over 4
Right.
hours.
but I
And
think
s-
that's what Renee was
Yeah, so
getting
then I
at.
could try and
Each
like
one of them
work
is-
with
Scheduling.
schedules.
Yeah, and then we can schedule a little break in there for, for 4 hours,
Drink a
restroom break
Right.
or whatever.
So
you
we
know.
want to do this for 4 hours. I don't want to, but.
You want to do it on
I'll
one day or
do
You want to
two?
cut it to 20 minutes?
Absolutely, we need to do it all in one day.
Okay.
No, that's not what my question was.
Oh,
No, that was.
That was my question, and you answered it.
I guess we're just.
That's fine, yeah, let's get it done.
I mean,
Sure.
I'd say.
I
if we-
think it's great to do it in one
continuity.
day.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Unless
Yeah.
somebody can't come on that day, and then we should be flexible and just interview it interview them on another day.
Were there, I guess,
Oh, you mean if they can't? Because
Yeah.
we all agreed that that was, and that's
yeah,
the
we,
day I
we
blocked
published
out.
it, but I'm wondering if they all know
But
that.
I also
it.
would not throw out a candidate because they had something. So I think that if they need to come at a different day, I think we could.
Well, they've got,
Well, they do
almost a
interviews
week now
on
to,
Sunday, on Monday.
They've
If they
seen the
can.
schedule.
Yes, if they can, that would be great.
So Monday puts you the day ahead of the board meeting, and we said that in our other meeting, you'd like to seat them on next Tuesday.
I didn't say that, but
Yes, you did.
Well,
I don't.
Well, no,
that
we
was
said if
I don't-
possible.
I
If you guys
don't wanna
were
be
able
tied
to
it.
determine a
Do that.
candidate.
We
Yeah.
voted to if a
If
candidate had
qualified
been decided
candidate
upon.
Yes.
gets
I think
decided.
there's an
Agreed.
excellent
That's what we
likelihood
said,
that
that's
we're
what I
going
said.
to decide, but I don't
mean,
think,
I
we
think
want to
we
be
should
locked,
decide, but-
locked in, but,
Yeah, that's what I mean, is that we didn't
I mean, we've
agree
got
to be locked
eight
in.
good, well-qualified
I have full
applicants.
confidence that we will be able to pick somebody.
I would agree with you that, I think that's an excellent possibility. Hi.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent possibility too.
so maybe the final question, I don't know if it's final. I didn't look through the rest of the agenda to see if we've answered all of this special meeting agenda items, but we have been streaming some of our special meetings. We've been streaming all work sessions, all regular meetings. If we were to go every 30 minutes and just schedule an interview, you know, certainly it's open to the public, so anyone could come. Yeah.
Oh, so even the candidates could sit in and watch?
Yes.
They could potentially,
I would ask them not to.
maybe there's
But they
a
can.
professional courtesy
It's
that you
open,
could ask.
I mean, not.
Well, if you
there
don't
was a
stream it, then
question.
it's not an issue.
No,
Well, they
I
can
don't.
still walk in.
Huh?
Yeah,
They
it's,
can,
They could walk in.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
oh, because it's an open meeting, okay.
yeah,
Right, it is.
Yeah, certainly.
No exec sessions on this, for
Okay.
sure.
Can we, yeah,
Um,
maybe we don't
But
stream.
yeah, maybe
I
not
don't
the
wanna
streaming, the interviews, but probably the candidate selection when you're ready to make that decision. I think it's
Yeah.
important that, for transparency, that people know how you're voting and why you voted that way. And again, I mean, you'll have your criterion based upon what you were looking for when you came in. And I think that's a fair assessment.
So we didn't really talk about selection criteria.
no, and you just said that you feel like we should stream the selection process?
That's what I,
At the end, when you guys.
I don't want to, so maybe we can vote on that? Because
Sure.
I don't want to do that, because it's open meeting.
it is.
But I think out of respect to the people that, they are all,
No, I would agree because, you know, we're only going to select one person out of eight.
I know, and I
And
don't,
so
I
now
wouldn't
to have
wanna
that,
be the
they have
other
that
seven.
recorded and, you know.
And so people can just like watch every,
Yeah,
that's said about
And,
them.
and as far as the applicants, I know it's an open meeting, but I think
It's
we
an
might
open meeting.
request that the applicants who say, you know, to be fair to the others, you know, rather than hear someone else's responses.
Yeah, we could make that recommendation.
Yeah, a request.
You bet.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
of course, if they don't want to comply with that request, it's an open meeting and they can come on in.
Certainly.
But to be fair to the other applicants, rather than to have them an opportunity to listen to what other people said, you know, we
Yeah.
could request that they,
Yeah,
you know, not come in while the others are being interviewed.
I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah, I just assumed they wouldn't walk in. Because it is an open meeting, but I had.
You know, but
just
whoever
assumed
went
that.
last would have potentially an advantage, you know, having heard the responses of the others or whatever.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true, I hadn't thought
Of
about
course,
that.
when they're done, they could always sit and listen. but-
Yeah,
That's
when
what I'm
their
saying,
interview's
is I
over,
don't
yeah,
want
they,
it to be streamed.
doesn't make any difference, but if they haven't been interviewed yet,
Mhm.
But you think the selection should be streamed?
I just throw that out as
I don't want it to be.
an option.
Yeah, I think I'd prefer it not be streamed.
I agree, I
think
prefer
out
not
of
to have it
respect for
streamed.
the
Privacy,
people,
yeah.
I don't think they want to be talked about.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to be talked about on
camera.
Well,
camera.
seven
They
people
have
are
a-
not gonna be
and then it's on
selected, so.
Facebook,
Right.
And then it's on Facebook and everything else, so I wouldn't want that.
Okay.
I think out of respect to them, I think, but certainly it's an open meeting,
Mhm.
wide open. Anybody can come and listen, and find out, why did you select them? You know, cause I had somebody say, who was very highly qualified, say, you know, ask me, who decided the Highland Rebuild Committee and what qualifications were taken into consideration? And I told him, and, anyway, I think it's important that people, if they want to know that, they can come, certainly.
Okay, all right.
And listen.
I think we have a good understanding of the process. How are we looking for the agenda? Did we get all of those covered?
The agenda
We're ready.
For a special meeting tonight, with those 4.
Oh, yeah, I think that we covered all of the bases, other than maybe just that selection criteria, which is, I think, where you pulled that last question from, Jim. The selection criteria was
That's what I
more,
thought, that there were
more
different
like what you use after we've done the interviews to kind of like base your decision-making on. Are those good questions? Do you like them? Do you want more,
I did.
less?
I think these questions are.
The ISBA sample criteria, does the
No,
candidate
it's
fill a gap?
the trustee
Yes,
candidate.
the ISBA, it's the sample selection criteria.
Does the
instead of
candidate
interview
fill a
question.
gap? Have they
Mhm.
previously participated?
So if you guys are good with those, that would be what you're adopting is those interview questions, as Ray presented, and then the ISBA selection criteria.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
So will
I
you
mean, it's
have
fine to
a
talk
sheet
about
that we can
those
take
things.
notes on from
Yes.
this, or, and these things will be all, okay. Otherwise I'll print out and make my own.
So are we ready for a motion then, or?
I think so. I would entertain a motion to adopt the trustee candidate interview questions with the caveat that we may ask other questions as follow-up.
I'll just add
And-
that to their follow-up questions, if that works.
I just want to make sure that that's part of my
Okay.
motion,
Yep.
because I'm not,
Or that's, are you making the motion then?
oh,
Ray,
Are you,
I can make a motion.
I thought you
You
just did. Why don't you go ahead and word it exactly the way you want it?
That's what, yeah, that's what I would like it to be.
Okay, I'll second that motion you just made
Okay.
then.
Is there a second? You seconded?
Yeah, I'll second.
Any discussion?
so my question is, does a time limit need to be put in the motion? I guess the time limit of a 30-minute interview is going to be the time limit.
Well, not to exceed 30 minutes.
Not
so
to
no-
exceed
Right.
30
If we put them
minutes.
at every
Yeah.
30 minutes, we're not gonna have 30 minutes to interview them.
right.
So we might say that's a 20-minute interview every 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, that works. So I don't know, you
How
probably
will
don't.
And I didn't put that necessarily for action. That was just
Okay.
more you guys could go with whatever style you
Okay.
wanted and.
Okay.
That's just a style
Yeah.
of interview,
Yeah.
and that makes sense. That makes sense to me.
So,
Okay, so all those in favor?
Okay, so any.
well, wait a
all in
second, I want to
favor?
make sure I understand.
Aye.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
we decided
Why don't you-
about the questions.
You want to, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, you said you made a motion that we adopt the questions with the proviso that we could have follow-up questions.
Mhm.
And then as an addendum to that, then we're going to say we're going to have 20-minute interviews? Or?
No.
I don't think we
Oh.
need that.
We're just
No.
gonna leave the time limit off of the motion.
Okay, good,
and just-
excellent, wonderful. Yeah, so I'll second your motion then.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This motion passed. Would anybody, is there a motion to select the trustee candidates?
Well, I would like to make a motion here too. I hereby move that the board adopt the selection criteria as presented by the ISBA.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the motion passed. Is there a motion to select the Zone 1 trustee candidates for interviews?
I hereby move that the board select all 8 of the following Zone 1 trustee candidates for interviews.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This motion passed. If there is there any other business that we need to discuss? If there is no further business, I would entertain a motion that we adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? The motion passed. I hereby declare us adjourned.
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I knew that I was getting, I was rushing. I'm kind of done.
Aye, sir, yes, sir.